the gap in the wild card standings and may even have the NL Central in sight. The Buccos look to gain more ground as they close the first half with a 3-game set against the suddenly vulnerable Cubs. But Jake Arrieta has dominated Pittsburgh the last 2 seasons.
Oh, strike 3. Swing and a miss, strike 3. Cuts in, strikes out.
It's Pirates, Cubs, with all your enhanced coverage on MLB+. The beautiful Steel City, Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. That's where we come to you tonight as the Cubs and the Pirates are set to do battle here at PNC Park. Fans are buying in. The Buccos are suddenly red hot. They're getting back into the wild card race and perhaps in the National League Central race as well as they open up a 3-game series here to end the first half of the season against the Chicago Cubs. MLB Plus powered by Amazon Web Services. As we welcome you to our studios here in New York, almost time for a little baseball here on MLB.com. I'm Andy Mazur, joined in the studio by Mr. Statcast himself, Mike Petriello, and also from MLB.com, Adam McCalvey. We'll introduce the rest of the crew to you here in just a moment. First, let's take a look at our pitching matchup tonight, which will include the National League Cy Young Award winner Jake Arrieta going up against Francisco Liriano. Both guys have struggled of late, and Mike, you can look at the walks as an issue for Francisco Liriano.
Yeah, Liriano's always had an issue with control, but this year it's kind of really getting out of control, if I make a terrible pun. He's got tied for the highest walk rate since 1998, the 30-team era. And here's the interesting thing. He's never really thrown a lot of strikes. Over the previous 2 years, he had the highest percentage of pitches outside the zone, and he was pretty effective. Difference this year is hitters just aren't going after those pitches. They're sitting on his fastball in the zone. Slugging percentage against his fastball is up about 130 points from last year. Big problem for him.
And when you look at Jake Arrieta, Adam, it's more about velocity.
Yeah, the velocity is down a few ticks, and you live in Chicago, so you know that the people there are just taking this right in stride as a normal up and down.
Absolutely.
We'll have a little more data on that later, but the bottom line for Jake Arrieta is he's given up 4 earned runs in back-to-back starts for the first time in more than a year. He hasn't gone past the 6th inning since 4 starts ago, and there is a little bit of cause for concern with his workload over the last couple of years. Good news for him, Pirates have been his favorite opponent over the last 2 years.
Nobody in Chicago worries about the Cubs ever, do they?
Never, never.
Let me introduce the rest of the crew, which will be joining us from various parts of the ballpark. Anthony Kastrovitz will be our T-Mobile Greater coverage reporter. Kerry Muscat, who covers the Cubs for MLB.com, will join us. And Dan Zangrilli, one of the pregame and postgame hosts for the Pirates on their radio network, will also join us. We also invite you to join us through our social media private. Ashley Chavez. Tweet us your questions and comments using hashtag MLB+. That's how you get in touch with us, and we'll get through some of the tweets coming up here in just a few moments. But right now, if you're tuning in for the first time and you wonder what all these numbers mean, just what is StatCast? Well, here we are to tell you.
Several years of research and development were realized in 2014 with the debut of MLB.com StatCast, the first ever reliable measurement of every play on a baseball field. Pioneered by MLB Advanced Media and debuted with prototypes at the 2014 All-Star Game, League Championship Series, and World Series, StatCast's roots can be traced back roughly a decade earlier to MLBAM's introduction of pitch tracking. Pitch tracking delivered a never-before-seen wealth of detailed information regarding every pitch thrown in the major leagues. Though a bold move at the time, today, pitch tracking technology is ubiquitous throughout broadcast television and baseball's digital products. But despite the data compiled on pitching, never before have there been reliable defensive statistics. The goal with StatCast was to leverage the technology to ensure that defense could be quantified and that a more complete picture of our game be made available to fans. To that end, all 30 ballparks have been outfitted with 2 distinctly different but collaborative technologies to allow for the data capture, optical tracking, and radar tracking. High-definition video camera arrays spaced 15 meters apart to capture stereoscopic video, and a 3D Doppler radar system which captures 2,000 samples per second of the entire baseball field. By marrying the data from each of these systems, it is now possible to scientifically quantify the skills and talents of players on the field using new player performance metrics.
When the lights come on, everybody's screaming, lighters in the sky, yeah, everybody's singing every word to every song of the girl.
And our thanks to Jason Aldean and Broken Bow Records. As we get ready for a little baseball here at PNC Park in Pittsburgh, lights are on. As we take a look at the starting lineup here for the Chicago Cubs, MLB Plus powered by Amazon Web Services. We focus on that leadoff spot, Adam, and Ben Zobrist is in there right now. That's because Dexter Fowler's still out.
And that has been a very big deal for the Cubs. That DL move happened on June the 20th. That is where you can mark a line and say the Cubs became a different team. They're 5-13 since that time. Their OPS has come down. They're down about a run a game. It has been a dramatic change. And you can't say it's all the offense or all one player because the pitching has struggled as well. And we'll have some numbers on that coming up as well. But that day, June 20th, for whatever reason, was the day for the Chicago Cubs.
And we'll get more information about Dexter Fowler coming up a little bit later, setting up a rehab situation for him. Still thinking he's going to be a part of the All-Star game picture as well.
Yeah, he's playing in the minor leagues tonight. He's going to play again tomorrow. I think he's DHing tonight and in the outfield tomorrow. And if he doesn't hurt himself, he says he's going to go out there. And it'd be really interesting to see him make his debut, his return in the All-Star game.
See how it works out for you there, kid. No pressure. Francisco Liriano, the man on the mound here. And Mike, you mentioned the fact that the walks have been a bugaboo, but tell us a little bit more about him.
Yeah, he is a sinker, a two-seam fastball, and a slider guy almost exclusively. You'll see he throws in the changeup, but it's really those two pitches, and that's been his game for years. Throw the slider outside of the zone, guys will chase it, and then he can pound the fastball in the zone, and that just hasn't happened this year. I think what's happening is the slider is too far out of the zone. Hitters won't go after it. They're sitting on the fastball. You can see here, this is not a list you want to be on. Highest fielding independent pitching, which basically just looks at the three true outcomes: walks, strikeouts, and home runs. He's not doing great in any of those three things, which is why he's on that list that you don't want to be on.
So he'll go to work here, the left-hander against the Cubs, who have been scuffling and who got into Pittsburgh in the wee hours of the morning after a rather long extra inning makeup game last night. So we'll get into that a little bit more as well. But we look at the outfield now, the starters here for the Pittsburgh Pirates. And one guy to kind of look at there is Andrew McCutchen. He's a guy that was a former National League MVP and a guy that's been on the All-Star team, not so much this year, and things haven't been going his way.
We're going to talk a lot about his hitting when he gets up to the plate, but right now let's focus on his defense. And you can see he's got the weakest arm in the outfield there. It's actually below average. Average outfield arm is roughly, I think, 87, 88 miles an hour. What's interesting is that he's actually played a lot shallower this year. We can measure that with StatCast now. He was about 316 feet deep on average last year. He's moved in about 10 feet this year. Part of that's because of the way this pitching staff is. They get a lot of ground balls. They don't let the ball go very deep in the outfield, but I think part of it's also because he just doesn't have a strong arm, and this will help him kind of keep runners from taking advantage. I think it's a really interesting way that the Pirates have taken advantage of that data.
Interesting how things have changed as far as that's concerned. Because everybody played shallow because they were the fast guys that could go back on the ball easily, and now it's kind of the numbers bear it out.
Well, what's interesting is that the Pirates have pulled their guys in, and the Cubs have pushed their guys out because they don't want the extra bases to go over their heads. So it's real fun to see these two advanced teams taking entirely different approaches.
So Ben Zobrist will take outside for ball one, and this game is underway here from Pittsburgh.
Zobrist Sandy has cooled actually a little bit. He had the best on-base percentage in the major leagues. He had 2 for 13 homestand, and that number has come down a little bit. He's only 9th now, so he's really struggling.
He's had a kind of a streaky season. In May, you couldn't get him out. June, a little bit easier, and July, as you mentioned, most of the Cubs hitters are struggling.
Yeah, his May was unbelievable. 483 on-base percentage, 653 slugging. Obviously, you have to come down from that just because if you kept that, it's essentially the greatest season in the history of the entire sport. But really, since then, 339 on base in June, 217 on-base percentage so far in July. It's really been kind of a rough last 6 weeks or so for Ben Zobrist.
And it's just kind of interesting, the whole dichotomy of the Cubs' struggles at this point. You know, once in a while you can look at one thing maybe going wrong to kind of put your finger at, but it's been a number of things that were going right for them all year long, including the starting staff.
The pitching actually stands out more than the offense. You know, they were #1 across the board in every pitching category in baseball, and now they've fallen way off, at least in that period. Again, June 20th was that day you got to look at. You know, they're 12th in ERA since then. They're 12th in opponents' OPS. They're 11th in WHIP. It has just been staff-wide, these guys having a little bit of trouble. If from just a old school baseball point of view, they're probably going to say middle of the season, right before the All-Star break. It's not uncommon for a team to go through that type of a period.
So a lot of pitches in that at bat, 6 to be exact. And Polanco will make the catch for out number 1. You are watching MLB Plus featuring StatCast, powered by Amazon Web Services. And don't forget to tweet us your questions and your comments using the hashtag MLB+. We'll get to some of those tweets a little bit later on. Get a chance to see our StatCast screen there. There'll be some drop downs from the score box. We'll tell you about spin rate and exit velocity, and Chris Bryant gets into that one. Big turn on his way to second, and McCutchen's throw is going to be offline. Kind of goes hand in hand with what you were just talking about, Mike.
Yeah, and for a big guy, Chris Bryant's actually surprisingly athletic. He's quicker on the bases. He might arguably be the NL MVP this year if Clayton Kershaw, misses another couple weeks. I don't think that McCutchen really had a chance for this ball either way, but you can kind of see the throw in, not necessarily one of his strengths, and I say that saying, McCutchen is obviously a wonderful player despite his struggles. So, not a great start for Liriano. At least he didn't walk in, but you can't leave the ball up for Chris Bryant, and you've seen that's what the problem is. They sit on that fastball and they hit it really hard. When we get the exit velocity here, I actually have it right now, 101 miles an hour on that.
And Bryant, one of the guys in the Cubs lineup, over 90.5 on average in his exit velocity. And here comes Anthony Rizzo. Kind of surprising that Bryant's even in the lineup today. He got hit by a pitch twice yesterday, and once right on that front knee. And he had to leave the game before the extra innings began.
And earlier in the week had a collision in shallow left field. He has had a painful week.
Yes, he has.
Yeah. He is ready for the All-Star break.
Especially with a lefty on the mound. The Cubs have other right-handed hitters. They could have gone Matt Caesar in the outfield. They could have gone Albert Almora in the outfield and pushed Hayward back over. They had the opportunity to give Bryant a rest here, so it's really interesting that they chose not to.
So here is Rizzo, who last year led the league in being hit by a pitch, and you can understand why. Look how close to the plate he stands.
He had the first ever 30-30-30 season last year. Home runs, doubles, and hit by pitches.
It's pretty amazing. That's a badge of honor you really wear, so to speak. And that one outside.
Another guy in this game, Starling Marte, known to get hit by a lot of pitches as well, so they can battle it out. The thing I like about Rizzo is every manager wants stability in their offensive players. If you can eliminate the highs and the lows, that is, I think, the kind of player a manager loves. That is Anthony Rizzo. I mean, his last 2 years, the numbers are so similar. 2014, 386 on base. Last year, 387. It just doesn't seem like this guy has peaks and valleys.
And he's a lefty who doesn't get eaten up by lefty pitchers. I mean, you see he's starting tonight. He's one of the few guys who doesn't really have big platoon splits. He's actually one of the better, lefty on lefty purveyors of damage in baseball. And you can kind of see here, Joey Votto, obviously number one, not surprising. And then Rizzo and Harper. Those are some pretty big names at the top of that list. And I think that's really impressive because you don't see that a lot.
There's a bunch of all-stars on that list right there.
Especially on the bottom there. It's funny how that worked out.
We'll get to that in a little bit. Check swing, and that one inside. Just under 96 miles an hour on the fastball there from Liriano. And typically, I don't think umpires will ever say this, but, if you're a guy that's known for walks, you don't really get those tight calls. You don't get the close ones.
It's sad that it's true, but you're absolutely right that it is true.
And there is ball 4. So now, 2 men on for the Cubs, first and second with one out here in the first. You're watching MLB Plus featuring StatCast. It's powered by Amazon Web Services. The AWS Cloud powers Major League Baseball, delivers StatCast next-gen services right here. So here's the rookie, who was brought up as a catcher and has pretty much played everywhere else but catcher, Wilson Contreras. Had quite a major league debut, hitting the first pitch he saw into the seats for a pinch hit home run.
That is a very nice way to introduce yourself. The other nice way to introduce yourself is to come up and play out of position, basically. The Cubs had a need for an outfielder, and he comes up. He's a catcher by trade, a young catcher, prized young catcher, and not a lot of teams will stretch a guy like that, but look, they needed a bat, they brought him up, and here he is hitting cleanup in what qualifies as a big game given what's happened with the Cubs lately.
He's basically become the starting catcher. Now, I know he's not catching today, but it's basically come down to he'll start 3 days a week. Ross, when healthy, will catch Lester, and then Montero will catch Arrieta. And, you don't want to put too much emphasis on 78 plate appearances, but the way Montero's been not hitting this year, and obviously Ross is not a guy who's going to be able to play every day, Wilson Contreras, starting Cubs catcher. It's not something I would have thought of even a month ago.
And we'll see Contreras this week catch John Lester for the first time. Lester, of course, using David Ross pretty much exclusively as his catcher. With Ross out on the 7-day concussion DL.
Andy, you pointed out a minute ago that you saw 96 miles an hour from Liriano. So to the decimal point, it was 95.6. It's his hardest pitch of the entire year.
Right there, huh?
Right there, which is, obviously as the weather warms up, guys get stretched out, you tend to see a little bit higher velocity. But at least that's off to a good start. From the left side, almost 96 is impressive.
2-0 the count here on Contreras. 2 on, 1 out, first inning. Good pitch low there. And you wonder sometimes, too, about younger players and what veteran pitchers have as far as their repertoire and what they like to do against young guys and use that aggressiveness against them and go to the secondary pitching or to the secondary pitches.
Yeah, it's tough for for Liriano because, well, that might be a good plan. If he can't put those pitches where he needs them to be, it's not going to matter. And I'm sure that Contreras, the other guys in the Cubs, have gone up to him and said, listen, this guy throws hard. He's got a nasty slider. Don't get fooled by it. Let the slider go by and sit on the fastball. Right. If you can't hit the plate, then you can't hit the plate. And look at right now, it's 3-1.
And that's been the story for Liriano really through his career, that those secondary pitches are out of the strike zone a lot of times. And when he has been good, it's because hitters don't recognize that and they're swinging at those pitches.
Rodriguez flags that one down. The throw is going to be in time at second. A tremendous recovery there by Rodriguez. I'm not sure if the Cubs will want to take a look at that play at second, but they get the out for the time being.
It's a nice play from a guy who's not really a regular shortstop. Rodriguez plays pretty much all over the place except for catcher. That's a nice stab, and I'll be interested to see the replay because to me it didn't look like he kept his foot on the base at second, but perhaps we'll be able to see it better here.
Very close. Almost too close to waste the challenge this early in the game.
And that is the thing. What I've heard from managers is you don't want to challenge this early unless you're sure. That looks like an out.
Yeah, on the replay for sure.
That slide was close there. That was very inside the bag, and you know how umpires have such a close eye on that play that after the Chase Utley rule came in. We saw it end a Nationals game with some fanfare last night. But that was a close one right there.
And Addison Russell picking on the first pitch, and Liriano looks like he's going to get out of trouble here in this very first inning and strands him at first and third on the fly ball to left field. So the Cubs do not score, and they leave a couple. And a wasted opportunity, and that's kind of what has been happening with the Cubs of late, and just the fact that when you're not scoring runs, fast teams seem to press a little bit. But this was a fantastic play here by Rodriguez.
Exactly. When you're struggling, that's exactly the kind of play that you get. It's why offenses tend to start to press a little bit when they get in situations like that. It just feels like you're never going to get that.
What does an inning like that do for a guy like Liriano? Because, as we said, he's missing the mark a lot with those pitches. He did walk a man in that inning, but yet found a way to get out of it.
Yeah, walked a guy, gave up, that Brian hit was hit really hard. It's a good start, right? But that's all it is. And I think he's going to need to prove he can do it for more than an inning because even though they've been slumping, it's still a very dangerous Cubs lineup.
All right, well, he's going to be opposed, of course, as we mentioned, by Jake Arrieta, who's a National League Cy Young Award winner. He struggled over the last 3 starts. He said he thought he was a little too mechanical in his last start, but really, as we talked about at the beginning of the broadcast, fastball velocity has been an issue.
Yeah, and it's down a little bit, and you look at his workload again over the last couple of years, and that is what causes the concern for Cubs fans. This was a guy who always had great stuff, didn't always quite command it. Now he's lacking command, and the question is that dip that you see there by design? Is he, in other words, taking a little bit off his fastball in order to rediscover the command of the off-speed pitches? And that is, I think, a theory that's out there, and there's a pretty good chance that that's what this is, and that there's not cause for concern about that dip in velocity.
Yeah, I think there's a lot of validity to that, and I think you're right, that he probably is doing that somewhat on purpose to try to fix the mechanics, try to get the control back. He said he's been a little bit too much over the top, and that's kind of screwed with his movement. He's been missing an inch or two off, vertically and horizontally. Ideally, he can fix all of that and get the velocity back up, because that's when you get to, the historically great Jake Arrieta that we saw for so long. But it's got to at least be one or the other. But let's at least remember, we're all talking about how Jake Arrieta is collapsing. Over his last 8 starts, his ERA is like, 3.30. It's still a very good pitcher.
And he's been doing a lot of damage against this ball club, against the Pittsburgh Pirates this year. Very much unhittable against them in 3 starts. An ERA of 0.86. as he enters this one. And pitching in a place that he's done pretty well as well in his career. 9 wins and 13 starts, or 12 starts, 9-1. And the Cubs have had the Pirates' number so far this year. And John Jaso will lead off. Kind of an interesting guy in and of his own right.
Yeah, John Jaso was just, when he signed with the Pirates, he was the most Pirates signing. You know, you figured, oh, you know, a guy who gets on base, but, you know, a little questionable about his defense. He's maybe this undervalued. So they got him on a great deal, and he started off outstandingly. You know, the first month of the season, he got on base 389 on base percentage, which is great. And then 348 on base percentage, not so great. And then all of a sudden, in June, he hit 197 with 313 on base percentage. I was actually a little bit surprised not to see Josh Bell, who they just called up in the lineup tonight. But I can guarantee you that if they do bring in a lefty later, John Jaso will not face that lefty. He is unplayable against lefties, so maybe that's where you'll see Bell.
And that one fouled back.
And that may be a case, guys, of just, do you call up a prospect in Josh Bell and say, here's Jake Arrieta, here you go.
Well, you know, there's some managers that do that because they figure, you know, you're going to have to face these guys eventually. If you look at the Pirates lineup.
But they've been pretty open that Bell is here for a couple of days. You know, they sent down Tyler Glass now. Obviously, with the All-Star break coming up, they don't need 5 starters. So they actually have a 6-man bench tonight, which is, you don't see that very often. Bell will probably get an at-bat or 2 in each game. He might not even start, and then he's going to go right back down and start the second half in AAA.
The other thing is John Jaso, he's a good guy to have in there against a tough right-handed pitcher. Against righties, he's, you know, a better than average hitter. He's also good leading off, which is why the Pirates have him in that spot. 785 OPS when he's hitting first. OPS over 1 in the first inning. So he's been pretty good in these situations. And I just think it allows Josh Bell to come in, watch a ball game, get his feet wet a little bit. And I'm sure, as Mike said, you'll see him later in this game, or at least later this weekend.
There you see Bell. Take a look here at the replay of the strikeout here by Arrieta.
Yeah, just basically blew that one right by him, you know? And that was a well-placed pitch. You know, a 95-mile-an-hour four-seamer just off the outside corner, borderline, maybe with a strike or not. So you understand why Jason had to go for it and just blew it right past him. So that's good velocity there. It's a good sign.
So here's Polanco batting in the second spot. You know, interesting, too, about Bell was we were talking about him, the fact that a second-round pick, and yet they threw $5 million at him. I mean, you don't see that happen every day. So there's obviously something to his game.
Yeah, and you don't see it happen anymore because now we have the slotting system
exactly.
where if a team did that, it would screw up their entire draft. And he's one of the, you know, don't blame the kid for this, but look, he's that issue of signability. It dictated drafts for so long that here comes the new slotting system. And, you know, I know teams like it. I'm not sure how the players themselves and the agents might have a different take on this. But teams are able now to draft guys and have a better idea going in of how much you're able to spend and slot them in, and you see I think more top 10 picks sign because of this new system.
Cubs signed their first-round pick today, Thomas Hatch, the pitcher from Oklahoma State. Able to get him under contract today. But it's, I mean, that's good. I mean, a lot of guys used to see go back into the draft, and you know, you never know from season to season when you're a college athlete or a high school athlete.
The other thing I think that's good about it is the guys are signing right away. You draft the guys, everybody has an idea what he's going to go for. He signs and he gets out and plays. I mean, look at the number of first-round picks who already have some pro games under their belt, under past systems, especially when it was August 15th. If the deadline was August 15th, everyone would sign on August 14th. And you almost lose your first pro season because of that.
Yeah, I think we were only down to, 2 or 3 first-round picks who haven't signed. You know, great at-bat here, by the way, for Arrieta against Polanco, who's really broken out to become a superstar. Arguably, not arguably, I felt he should have been an all-star. Polanco's been fantastic, but when in outfield, you've also got Starling Marte. It's kind of hard to get both of them on. And more good velocity there. You know, he touched 95. Polanco took some real big swings, couldn't catch up to it. So far, so good for Arrieta.
So here's Andrew McCutchen. You know, that shot of Josh Bell earlier on our T-Mobile Greater coverage cam with different angles you'll be seeing throughout the night, courtesy of T-Mobile. And there he is right there, wearing the number 55, Josh Bell. Good to see the guy up on the top step, trying to be the sponge, absorbing everything.
Yeah, these first days can be really important for guys. You see that it's the same game.
And a hustling play there by Baez. And a 1-2-3 inning. for Jake Arrieta with a couple of strikeouts and the ground out. We played one in Pittsburgh, and there is no score. Time now to take a look at the best of the Cubs and the Pirates in StatCast.
There's a drive deep to left. Oh, Mercer me. Look at this shot. I mean, you can say all you want to about the roof being open, but that is a line drive home run that was crushed by Mercer. They say that one was 466.
Drives that ball in the air out into deep right center. Hayward is back on it. And did he catch it? What a catch by Hayward.
Well, you're going to see it here. He's starting to cheat that way a little bit before the pitch. But what a great route. And again, the willingness to, he never takes his eye off the ball to find the wall. He's got to know he's getting close. Just great concentration.
So you can imagine the force. Well, that's a good sign that he's on his feet.
And to left field and a base hit. Marte will gun toward the plate. Here's the throw.
And right on the money. You have to send them. I mean, it's a no-brainer. You send them. And, I mean, how accurate.
Soler cranks it deep to left. Way out of here, off the board.
This is a little bit of a hanger. And boy, did Soler ever get into that one. My goodness. This ball is crushed.
And hit the bottom part of the video board in left.
Thank you for watching MLB Plus. I'm Ashley Chavez. Now, I know Andy had mentioned it earlier, but we want to make sure that you're involved with this show as well. So make sure to tweet and Instagram us photos and other funny things, questions you may have about advanced stats using the hashtag MLB Plus, and we'll be sure to put them on the show. Now, as you know, final voting is over. We have our winners, Michael Saunders with 17 million votes and Brandon Belt with 10 million votes. I'm excited about that. But I'm really sad that we are done with watching all the teams with all their quirky little photos and all their, like here, we have our Jake Lamb, as Stephen Gilbert, our Diamondbacks reporter, tweets. Jake Lamb has an actual lamb with a sombrero on in the Arizona Diamondbacks locker room, which is fantastic.
It's like the punchline of a really bad joke, I think.
I mean, right? It is. It's so corny that it's amazing. Like, I love it so much. It's fantastic. We also have a GIF of poor George Springer looking sad, tweeted out by the Astros. Fortunately, he didn't make it this year, but next year. We'll hope for next year.
Yeah. I give the team sites a lot of credit. I mean, it was a lot of fun to watch.
Wasn't it so creative? Huh? Yeah.
And the alliances that were formed a little bit there too, Ashley, and between some of the teams in the National League and the American League.
I do love the alliances. It was a lot of fun to help our other side out. And lastly, we have Jerome Bettis tweeting, Steeler Nation, it's time for you to step in, with a video of Andrew McCutchen tweeting for Starlin Marte. So, I mean, can you get more star power than that?
The bus.
The bus.
Hopping on the bus there to try to.
They did everything they could.
Yeah. Ashley, we thank you, and we'll see you a little bit later on in the show.
Sounds good.
All right, Ashley Chavez manning things as far as social media for us, hashtag MLB Plus. As Jason Hayward grounds out sharply to Jaso for out number one. MLB Plus presented by T-Mobile. Greater coverage.
Jerome Bettis had a restaurant near PNC Park. I don't know if it's still there or not, but their signature item, which I, of course, tried.
You have to, right?
Was a deep fried cheeseburger.
Oh. That's what we need for our pre-show meal now.
I think you're right.
We'll be asleep by the third inning, but
it's okay.
Yeah, good pre-ball game fare.
Pittsburgh's a good food town, kind of an underrated food town as far as I'm concerned.
Great Italian food. Of course, the Primanti Brothers sandwich, which you can get at the ballpark. Get your fries right on the sandwich. Always
fries and slaw.
Fries and slaw.
Yes.
I have crushed many Primanti Brothers in that sky-high press box.
Okay, you're making me really, really hungry. Bill Mazeroski is number 9, the man that hit the big game-winning home run of the 60th World Series, and Baez gets drilled.
Yeah, it's not a walk, but it's still kind of the same effect, isn't it? Can't hit the plate, gives the guy a free pass to first. This is the Liriano we've seen for years. I don't know that there's been a more up and down pitcher in the game, dominant or a total mess. And that's 94 miles an hour right to the arm. That can't feel good.
And of course, right above the elbow guard he's wearing. Looks like that got flesh. You see by his reaction, that definitely got some flesh.
Discarding of that baseball with his bats, and Liriano again will work with the man on base here, Miguel Montero.
I'm going to predict a ground double play right here.
Okay.
Here's Montero's problem. He's hitting 197. Problem, his exit velocity is down 3 miles an hour, but mostly his ground ball percentage is way up. It's up from 40% to 55%. You might be shocked to find that older, slow catchers don't do too well when hitting grounders. He's hitting 143 on the ground. So you combine all those things, and you understand why he's having his worst season in about a decade.
That one flied, and it'll be down the left field line and just going foul. Interesting dimensions at PNC's in Pittsburgh and PNC Park, where it's kind of a short porch down the lines. They got that high 21-foot wall out in right field, the 21 feet for Roberto Clemente and his number 21. It's a good look at the left field side, but it juts out very quickly to like 410.
Biggest left field in baseball.
Yeah.
And it's one of the reasons that the Pirates love having Starling Marte there, who's maybe their best center fielder. He just happens to play left field, but it makes sense at that ballpark because of the amount of ground he has to cover.
Yeah, you make an absolutely perfect point, because you're right. Marte is almost without question a better outfielder, I think, at this point than McCutchen is. And you think about it, why wouldn't you change him? It's because of that ballpark. Any other ballpark, for the most part in the bigs, they probably would change them. It's not just that McCutchen is the big name.
How about another hit by pitch? So a walk and now 2 hit batters in this game. First and second for a pretty good hitting pitcher in Jake Arrieta. We might have gotten him on the wrist.
Yeah, that's a good angle there. You always got to be careful when you get a ball around the hand or wrist area, especially for a catcher. That's got to be rough. Not necessarily the start I think Liriano was hoping for. Not walking everybody, but you can't hit the plate. You're hitting guys.
Another 94-mile-an-hour fastball as well. Looked right on the wrist. So fastball command, we were talking that one of his issues is breaking ball command. Well, here, Liriano early can't get that fastball in the zone.
That's the 8th time in his career he's got multiple hit by pitches in a game. And we're in the 2nd inning. See if we can get.
Long way to go.
Maybe we can set a record.
Yeah. 2-seamer there. And not a high spin rate there at 1,904.
Well, it's a little bit low, but that's actually a good thing for a sinker, because you want a sinker to sink, and that's what a low spin rate will do. A high spin rate will defy gravity, keep the ball up. It's the guys who get stuck in the middle that really don't have that much success with the fastball. So low spin on a sinker is actually a pretty good thing, as long as you're not throwing it at the other hitter.
Good point. Mado's getting restless here in Pittsburgh. Here's some of the Boo Birds out there. And Arrieta with a 2-0 count. Big swing there. Arrieta going old school, no batting gloves.
Let's see, I think 3 of the pitchers the National League are sending to the All-Star game have multiple homers. So him, Syndergaard, and Bumgarner. Right now, obviously now Bartolo Colon, not multiple, but he's at least got the one.
And where did that one come?
I believe it came at San Diego.
San Diego against James Shields.
Need to get Bartolo Colon in at bat in the All-Star. I understand it matters, the game counts, it's not just an exhibition game. But please, baseball gods, find a scenario that gets us a Bartolo Colon at bat. I want to see StatCast of his swing. I want to see a home run.
I'm more interested in the trip around the bases.
Bartolo in the home run derby would be spectacular.
He's going to be in town. Maybe we can just put him in the celebrity softball game.
There you go. Had him played perfectly. And that double play will get Liriano out of trouble for the 2nd consecutive inning.
I was just one batter too late, apparently, when I predicted that double play from Montero.
So no runs and 1 man left. And they had him played perfectly on the shift.
I love the right-handed shift. Right? You always think about a shift against the lefty. Look exactly where the infielder was right there. Might have been a base hit otherwise.
So we head to the bottom of the second here in just a moment. We were speaking about Josh Bell, the young man that was just called up here by the Pittsburgh Pirates. Let's get his thoughts on what it means to be called to the big leagues.
Yeah, it was just after the game. Dean told me in the clubhouse with everybody around. I was able to hug it out with my teammates and say goodbye to my teammates I'm really close with. Like I said, I just texted my parents, told them to come down to the family waiting room. And from that point on, pack up my bag, try to sleep as much as I can, and then hop on a plane this morning.
And back here at MLB Plus, we head back out to PNC Park in Pittsburgh and welcome in Anthony Castrovince, our T-Mobile Greater coverage reporter. And Anthony, you were out there when Bell was meeting with the media. Does he get the understanding of the message about why he's here and what he's going to be doing while he's in the big leagues?
Yeah, I think, there's a general sense of temporariness to this. He's here for this weekend series against the Cubs. They had an opportunity to do this because Tyler Glasnow gave them the innings they needed yesterday in St. Louis, so they're able to send him down and create a roster spot for Bell. And he's basically a bat off the bench for them. The Cubs have one left-handed reliever, and it's not totally unlike earlier this season. They called up Alan Hansen, who's an infield prospect for them. Just kind of gave him the opportunity to get his feet wet and get the butterflies and the jitters out of the way, and hopefully that foundation helps him moving forward. But Bell, certainly the interesting thing here for me with him coming up is I heard you guys talk about John Jaso earlier, and he had a great start to the season, but let's face it, since the beginning of May, basically, his bat has sagged a bit. On-base percentage is not what it was. OPS overall is about 630 for, about 2 months now. So you do wonder if this might be trending in the direction of Bell, coming back up and maybe stealing some at-bats from Jaso, because, you need some production for your first base spot. But, yeah, for now, just a nice bench bat for them to have here. And what's really a big series for the Pirates, because they're trending in one direction, Cubs kind of trending in the other here in recent weeks, and they need to make up some ground against these guys.
Hey, Anthony, it's Mike. We saw Tyler Glasnow the other day. Jamison Tyon's been up. We've seen Steven Brault and Chad Kuhl, and even Garrett Cole's not that old. Is this kind of are we seeing the next version of the good Pirates pitching staff?
Yeah, totally. And, this club's used 11 starting pitchers already this season, which is not by design. And it's not by design to having to, pardon the pun, but break the glass on Glasnow. And, Chad Kuhl has made a couple starts for them. And, of course, Taillon before.
And Anthony, let me interrupt you real quick there on a David Freese home run, an opposite field shot that just snuck out near the foul pole and right.
That's 2 weeks in a row, by the way, because last week we had Fernando Perez on talking through 2 Mets home runs. So whenever you want to see some fireworks, we'll just bring in our reporters.
But Anthony, go ahead and continue your thought. Sorry to interrupt you there.
Sorry, guys. I got the speaker right over my head here. So. Kind of got a little out here for a minute.
Yeah, go ahead and finish up your thought there, because we had to interrupt you there for the home run.
But in general, yeah. So sorry, guys. But in general, this team's trying to get traction from the starting rotation. Their starters are averaging just over 5 innings per outing, and again, it's not ideal to have to rely on these young guys, but at least give credit to their system for producing these young guys. And it's kind of a tough thing for a small market club to do, to have the success they've had the last few seasons and yet still maintain a strong farm system. They've done that, but now it's just about those guys, taking their ups and downs at the big league level.
Anthony, it's Adam McCalvey. Give me your big picture take on where the Pirates are at and which direction you believe they will go or should go as we get closer to this August 1st trade deadline. Are they a buyer?
Well, it's going to be interesting because, for one, even if they are a buyer, we know it'll be more on the small side, right? That's their history. Even in seasons where they were clearly contenders, clearly on pace for 90-plus wins, they still took more of a safe approach at the deadline. They did, a couple years back, have serious discussions about David Price, but obviously did not come to pass. But, to answer your question for this year, it's tough because obviously they're not in an ideal spot in the division, but they're very much in that wild card thick. And they've got a really soft schedule coming out of the break. I think that's one thing they're keeping in mind here. And granted, in baseball, that's not always the same discussion as in other sports. The Pirates proved that last year with their record against the Reds in particular, really hurt them. But I think they're really curious to see how these next few weeks play out. Again, if they can get some traction for rotation, because even if they do a sell-off, I don't see it being some major thing where an Andrew McCutchen gets moved. But they certainly have some pieces like David Freese and Mark Melanson, guys who are going to be free agents this winter. Would be nice trade chips for them. But, in a small market like this, I don't think you can just look past any opportunity to contend for something. And if they're still in that wild card mix, it wouldn't surprise me if they stay in it.
Well, Anthony, we appreciate your insight here. Good stuff. We'll check back with you later on in the game.
All right, guys. Sounds good.
All right, Anthony Castrovan is joining us from PNC Park, our T-Mobile Greater coverage reporter. Saw the home run by Freese and a kind of a bad hop single by Marte, and now a steal of second. And some contact there at second base. As you see, Marte since 2013. Right on a good list of up there with some speedsters.
He is an underrated, I think, base stealer. A little bit, we clocked that at just over 2 seconds pop time for Miguel Montero. That's slightly below average. Average is just under 2 seconds. And when you're talking about pop time, tenths of a second really do matter. Throw a little under 80 miles an hour, which is about average for a catcher. But you can see it was right on target, and it looks like it actually caught a little bit of Marte down at the base there.
So Josh Harrison, the batter, guy that was actually drafted by the Cubs and is celebrating his 29th birthday tonight.
So,
he had a missing.
I got to ask, and all due respect to Josh Harrison, was that one big season he had a fluke, right? Because if you look at him, he had a couple years before that where he was a pretty useful utility guy. And then in 2014, all of a sudden, slugging 490. It was 5 wins above replacement. And then over the last 2 years, this year, it's actually kind of looks like it was when he was a rookie. 304 on base, 378 slugging. It's just not the same. And you've got 5 years of data that says he's one kind of guy and 1 year that says otherwise. As, of course, he hits the ball extremely hard right there. Thank you, Josh.
They weren't able to track it down on the warning track. And Marte will scoot on to third base.
I'm going to write that one down as a pop-up just for you, Mike.
Thanks.
but I just to follow up on his point, it's been kind of even regression, too. It was 347 on base in his big year in 2014, then 327 last year, and then, as you said, 304. The extra base hits are way down, not the same player.
Let's take another look at the David Freese home run using StatCast to shed some light on exit velocity and the like, powered by Amazon Web Services.
Yeah, you can see actually 340 is not terribly far for a home run. And even though that launch angle is pretty much perfect, that's one of the best launch angles you can have for a home run. 95 miles an hour is not especially elite. Of course, the runs on the board, that's all he cares about. But you can kind of see from that, it just sort of snuck over. I don't think that would be a home run in every park.
Do you know off the top of your head, Mike, what the slowest exit velocity is on a home run?
I did. I want to say we've had 1 or 2 below 90, like 88, 89. But it's going to have to be something where it like snuck around the pesky pole or something like that.
Or in Oakland, someplace that has the real tight corners.
Yeah, exactly right. It's got to be like right on the line, so it's not.
So Arrieta has given up a home run here in the inning, and now with a man at third base, will work with 1 out to Sean Rodriguez. Angels, Rays, and Pirates in the career of Sean Rodriguez.
He's off to the best start of his career, and that's going to help.
That ball is going to be launched into the second decker right near it out there in left. That's a 2-run shot, and the Pirates have put up 3 here in the second.
I was going to detail how Sean Rodriguez was off to the best start of his career, and it's true. He was already slugging 487 before that. That's going to push it up closer to 500. Now, for Sean Rodriguez, has been in line for a while. I'm going to say this is just a nice start to a season. But if you look at both of these home runs, the first one to Freese, fastball right down the middle from Arrieta. This one, I think it looked like it was a slider, but it didn't have a lot of movement. It was in the zone. Sliders, you want to have a lot of movement, ideally diving out of the zone, so the hitter goes after it. This one hung up. You could see that ball was essentially belt high. And if you don't have a lot of movement on a pitch that's not your hardest pitch, that's what's going to happen to it.
So the catcher, Eric Kratz, now.
Arrieta's on up to 7 home runs this season. He gave up 10 all of last year, so this inning is not going to help those worriers in Chicago about what's going on with Jake Arrieta.
And you brought up workload. And Mike, is there anything in StatCast that can tell you that maybe a guy's got a fatigued arm, or that there's a lot of mileage building up on that?
Well, there's a couple of different things you could look for. Obviously, I think the first thing anybody would think of is velocity, and we've shown that his velocity has dipped. Now, I think Adam made a good point that maybe it's not necessarily an accident. He's trying to get better control. Beyond that, you could look at spin rate, and I don't think it's changed that much for him. You can also look at release point. Maybe it's higher or out more in front. For him, he just seems to be a little out of whack. The pitches aren't getting the movement he wants, not hitting the spots he wants, and that's the hardest thing to quantify is command, right? Like, it's really hard to say, well, that ball went where it wasn't supposed to go. That there is actually a technology that's supposed to do that. It's not StatCast. It doesn't work very well because it's almost impossible to identify intent. So there's a lot of different things you could look at, but Arrieta has himself said his mechanics aren't where he wants them to be.
And you get that old golfing philosophy that states paralysis by analysis sometimes.
Trying too hard. And hitters talk about it all the time. The harder you swing, the less success you're going to have. And I think there is a similar corollary for pitchers. I've talked to pitchers, Mike, about StatCast and whether or not they look at some of the data, the spin rates, and velo is obviously one that everybody looks at. And what I hear from them is they are really interested in this information as time goes by, because the more time that passes and the more data you have, and you can look at individual cases of how guys went up and down, you can start to put things into practice. I think right now players feel like they can look at the data and they can analyze maybe what's happening in a moment, in a snapshot, but they don't know how to take that data and then make fixes. I think the players themselves feel, especially with spin rate comes to mind, that's something that's going to take a little bit of time and more knowledge.
I think you're absolutely right. And we're all learning about that. And, real quickly as the inning ends here, that's what makes the Pirates really successful, because they've done the best job of integrating that analytics stuff with the players. They have their stats guy in the clubhouse on the road trips, really explaining what it means and how to use it. Not every team does that, and I think that's been a big advantage for Pittsburgh.
So 3-0 Pirates after 2 innings of play. Time now to look at the best of the week in StatCast.
That's line to left field. Encarnacion is going to run on Gordon. Close, and he got him.
Nice. Alex Gordon, deep from left field. Wow, I didn't think he had a chance at him. Wow, what a throw by Alex. Perfect. That's right where Salvi wants it. You want that ball on the left side of home plate so you can tag him out just like Salvi did.
And now Donaldson rips one left center field. Forget about this one. Way out of here for his second home run of the game. Heading to the All-Star game on a roll.
Chris Young likes to pitch up in the strike zone, use his fastball. That was a bomb. What was pretty about that swing? It was effortless.
This one lifted down the right field line. Long run for Cole toward the foul line. Still racing over. Dives and he goes. What a play by Cole Calhoun. Launching himself as if he were diving into a pool, Goopy.
And he was taking a quick dip into the bay. Mark that down as one of the best plays you'll see all night in Major League Baseball by Cole Calhoun.
Back at PNC, the Cubs and the Pirates going to the top of the third, and a 3-0 lead for the Pirates. Jake Arrieta giving up a couple of home runs there in the bottom half of inning number 2. David Freese just snuck one outside the right field line and just over the 21-foot wall, the Clemente wall out right. And one of those, this was a no-doubter, though, by Sean Rodriguez.
Right down the pipe on both of those pitches, as we said. And Rodriguez had a really good year. But I think any hitter, when you just leave that slider hanging right there, 108.7 miles an hour, I think Adam, you were just saying, that's the second hardest hit ball this season at Arrieta.
Yeah, and it comes off the bat of Sean Rodriguez. I don't think if you look at the rest of this Pittsburgh Pirates lineup, and Gregory Polanco and Starling Marte and Andrew McCutcheon, I'm not sure we would have had Sean Rodriguez. That's the one that's going to bother Arrieta. The other one's a pop fly. Basically at most parks, as you said, an out. The Rodriguez one is the one he's gnawing about in the dugout right now.
MLB Plus featuring StatCast, powered by Amazon Web Services. As you watch along with us here, our enhanced coverage of this game between the Cubs and the Pirates.
Yeah, there's that off-speed pitch that works the way it's supposed to work. It's outside the zone. Hitter goes after it and swings and misses. Liriano's been staked to a 3-0 lead here. The last thing he can do is walk the ballpark or keep hitting guys. He's just got to throw strikes. Ideally, have that ball turn into an out. Didn't happen there. Not really hit hard, so not his fault. But he's got a lead, and he just needs to maintain it.
And as far as the Cubs are concerned, with having left 3 men on base already in this game, opportunities were there in the first 2 innings to really get to Liriano.
And especially with the command being as off as it wasn't like Liriano pitching great. This is a pitcher who looks very vulnerable, and the Cubs unable to take advantage.
So Zobrist the board. And Chris Bryant, who smacked a double his first time up, swinging first ball again and fouls it down the line.
Somehow I'm not sure if Chris Bryant actually gets enough credit for doing what he's doing, because if you look at this season last year, obviously it's a great season, a 6-win season. You know, this year, in almost 300 fewer plate appearances, he's only got 1 fewer home run, and he's cut his strikeouts from 30% to 23%, massively increased his slugging. That's hard to do, and what he said is he didn't want to have as much of an uppercut swing. He wanted to hit more line drives. It's been a fantastically successful season too, and obviously playing all over the place.
And to add to that, if I could, the line drives, it's not just every hitter wants to hit line drives.
Yeah.
But I heard him say he actually wants to hit line drives because of the wind at Wrigley. On those days where the wind's blowing in, he felt like if he can be a better line drive hitter, it's valuable everywhere, right? But he thinks even at Wrigley Field, playing all those home games there, it would be even more important.
He used the term launch angle when talking about that. I respect that.
This one will be handled and left. Sent back out to PNC Park in Pittsburgh, and welcome in MLB.com's Carrie Muscat. She covers the Chicago Cubs. And Carrie, was there any concern about how late or early the Cubs got into Pittsburgh this morning?
If you get into town and you see the sunrise, that's not exactly a good thing. Although maybe for you guys it might be a good thing. But they were kind of looking. They were brewing a lot of coffee in the clubhouse, some other beverages to try and help sort of pick the spirits up. There was no BP. Guys just sort of rolled in, got their unis on, and took a few swings in the cage and go.
Carrie, it's your old friend Adam. This is the 3rd straight start Jake Arrieta has given up 3 earned runs. First time he's done that as a Cub. Are we allowed to finally be worried about this guy?
I'm not worried. What worries me a little more is that he's the biggest problem is fastball command, and that's what Joe Madden will tell you. That's actually what Jake will tell you. Sometimes his pitches just move too much, and he just really has a hard time controlling them. If he can't get the fastball command, then it doesn't work for the rest of the pitches. So what I found interesting was if you look at his game logs, he has not won a game in which the Cubs have scored 3 runs or less. They've scored a ton of runs for him, but when they don't score runs, then he struggles. I'm kind of curious about the correlation there.
Hey, Carrie, it's Mike. Wanted to ask you about Dexter Fowler, obviously working his way back from injury. He's playing in the minors tonight and tomorrow. Is he really going to make his return to the quote-unquote major leagues in the All-Star game?
That's very possible, yes. He's the DH tonight for Class A South Bend. I've heard they're going to have possibly a sellout crowd over there in South Bend. And then he's going to play the outfield on Saturday, and he's going to call Madden Saturday night after the game and let him know how he feels. All they're asking is that Dexter be really honest with them as to what he can and can't do. If he passes all the tests and he's ready to go, then on Sunday he'll go to San Diego and he'll be out there with the other 6 Cubs All-Stars.
Carrie, can I just
I mean, if you think about it, the guy's 30 years old. Think about where his off season. I mean, he was given a qualifying offer. He rejected it. He didn't get really any offers in the off season from anybody. And then he comes back to the Cubs, and he's been. I mean, to me, in the first half, he's been the guy. He goes and they go, and that's how they've been clicking.
Well, Carrie, we appreciate the insight of the knowledge. We'll let you go back and enjoy the rest of this game, and thanks for taking the time for us.
No problem. Hi, Andy. Hi, Adam.
Carrie, thanks. Appreciate it. Carrie Muscat of MLB.com. We've known her a long time, haven't we?
She's my buddy, yeah.
Used to hang out with her in spring training when the Cubs were at the old facility in Mesa, and there was always a hitting practice in the morning, and it was at the junction of field 2 and 3 So we always met at the 2-3 junction.
Carrie is a great resource of Cubs history. She's covered games, I believe, since they last won the World Series.
Wow.
And
that was Adam McCalvy, by the way.
No, I love her. She wrote a really wonderful book about the Cubs
from Banks to Sando to Grace.
Banks to Sandberg to Grace.
Sandberg to Grace, that's right.
A really nice, with little vignettes about Cubs history, an incredible wealth of information about that franchise. And I can kid because I've known her for years.
Yes, you have. So Contreras count of 1-2, runner at second. Clint Hurdle looking on from the third base dugout at PNC. Third straight inning, the Cubs have had a man at second base, but he has yet to score.
I feel like that's not a trend that can keep up. Either those guys are going to come around or he's going to stop letting them get there.
Mm-hmm. Eric Kratz out for a quick conversation with the left-hander. And the talk around Chicago, this guy right here at the plate, Wilson Contreras, came up, and everybody just loved him because of the enthusiasm that he shows. And last night, he got into a little skirmish with Jeff Francoeur after a pitch came inside.
He's a rookie, not going to let himself get pushed around.
No.
I don't like that. He, even as a minor league player, he's referred to as sort of an extra coach. That's how the instructors down in the minors thought of him. In makeup, when you're a catcher, that's a big deal. That's not going to get measured by StatCast. It's maybe a little out of place here, but it's the kind of player you need if you're going to build around him behind the plate.
You're watching MLB Plus featuring StatCast, powered by Amazon Web Services. We certainly appreciate their assistance in providing all these excellent numbers for you to chew on and digest and wrap your head around. Zobrist with an 11-foot lead and off to a walking lead there and a high strike. Called for strike 3, and Contreras doesn't like it.
That was a nice sequence there. The first 4 pitches were all low, 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 and then he goes high, changes the eye level. I think that's tough for a young hitter to kind of keep up with. I know he didn't like the call. I thought it was a great sequence.
So the inning comes to an end.
Throwing hard today, Andy, which stands out to me. Close to 95 again. He's throwing the hardest he has all year. The first 3 innings, it was 93.3, and I bet it ticked up there.
So Contreras will walk back to the dugout here as the Cubs try to regroup. As we go now to the bottom of the 3rd inning, welcome back into our studios here in New York. Andy Mazur, Mike Petriello, Mr. StatCast over there, and Adam McCalvy is off to my left here. And guys, early in this game, we talked a lot about the velocity with Jake Arrieta, kind of coming to fruition here. We've talked about Liriano and the propensity to get runners on base. Cubs just not taking advantage.
It hasn't been clean, right? I mean, he's hit a couple guys, given up some hard hit balls, but he's throwing harder. Cubs look uncomfortable at the plate, I think, and you got to feel something's going to give sooner or later. So far, so good, and I think that's the best you can ask for through 3 innings against the Cubs.
Don't forget that this is a really, really good Cubs offense. I mean, they are struggling right now. They are definitely not the team they were, say, 3 weeks ago. But, I mean, this team's still the highest scoring team in the National League, 5.2 runs a game. They score more runs per game than the Colorado Rockies. So if I'm Francisco Liriano, I am trying to figure out a way to get just a little tick better with the command of that fastball.
Well, things started off well for the Cubs. If you weren't with us earlier in the very first inning, Chris Bryant picking on the first pitch that he saw of the game from Francisco Liriano. And deposited that one into left center and tested the throwing arm of Andrew McCutchen.
You can see not too much on that ball, and if it was on target and throwing harder, maybe Bryant doesn't even go for it at all, but that could have been a competitive play at second base there.
Second inning, this home run that just snuck out over right field by David Freese. That a solo homer. And then the big blast right here by Sean Rodriguez.
And that's a no-doubter. Like you said, that was a hanging slider against the guy who's hitting really well this year. I think, as you guys said, that's the one he's going to be thinking about tonight.
So there you see the totals in the game right now. 3-3-1 for the Pirates, 0-1-0 for the Chicago Cubs. Back to the top of the order, John Jaso will lead off. And an interesting thing as I was looking, again, as I'm learning the finer art of StatCast from our StatCast expert down at the end of the table here, but I looked at Jaso, and I saw that his average launch angle this year is under 5. Is that possible?
It is possible. Negative numbers are possible, actually. The launch angle, essentially, it tells you whether you're hitting a ground ball or a line drive or a fly ball or a pop-up. 0 is right back at the pitcher's release point. So he is hitting a lot of ground balls. Probably 0 to 10 is where we kind of think of the ground ball zone. Not great for a guy without a lot of speed. Like John Jaso, I don't think anybody would consider him a speed demon. A lot of grounders, and I think that's partially why he's had a hard time keeping up his performance as the weeks have gone by.
You see an explanation, the definition of launch angle at the bottom of your screen. We'll keep flashing those definitions up there to help you out as you learn StatCast along with myself. Good look from our T-Mobile Greater Coverage Cam at Jake Arrieta. He was giving up those 3 runs, putting a couple of home runs. Velocity on that pitch just a shade under 96.
Yeah, the velocity seems okay tonight. I think we've seen both pitchers really throwing harder, but it's still, the movement isn't quite there for Arrieta and the placement, and I think that's what's going to hurt him.
That one came up on Zobrist, but able to corral and throw out John Jaso for out number 1 here in the 3rd. Zobrist playing the bulk of his games for the Cubs at second base. That's a pretty decent contact here by Jaso, but again, pretty low.
On the ground.
Yep.
Not great. Yeah, Arrieta so far averaging over 94 miles an hour on his fastball. So that's close to where he's been when he's really right. So that's a good sign at the very least.
But that last one illustrated it. It was a 3-1 count, and you can throw hard. If you're in a count like that where hitter knows fastball, he's going to be able to hit the ball hard. And that's what Jaso did. He just hit it in a bad spot. But that was over 100 miles an hour. And I think if he keeps putting balls in play like that, they're going to be hits, right, Mike?
Deepest part of the ballpark. And a backpedaling Hayward will make the catch off the bat of Polanco.
And how pretty is that Polanco swing? It's just one of the smoothest swings. He's really kind of changed his game a bit this year to add just a ton more power. He's turned himself into a superstar. And what he said, one of the things he worked on last year, his hand was coming off the bat. And so this year he worked really hard over the winter about keeping both hands on the bat, getting a ton more power. It was, as you said, deepest part of the park. That ball looked like maybe it had gone out off the bat, just barely stayed in.
Just like those typical lefties, they like the pitch low. Coming a little away from him, though. They come right inside on McCutchen.
What's interesting about Polanco, too, is that early he was known for this big looping swing. It wasn't regarded as that pretty of a... Darryl Strawberry was kind of the comp with that big looping swing. But he said he worked with David Ortiz in the offseason on hitting and sort of refining his approach to hitting. And you see it this year with the line drives.
So that line drive skips off the warning track and into the seats. So a double for Andrew McCutchen, 16th double of the year.
That is a sorely needed extra base hit for a guy who's been just struggling terribly for quite a while now. You wonder how much of that is the placement of the pitch from Arrieta. We'll get a chance to see it again in a second because McCutchen really has not hit for about 2 months now. And it looks like, we'll see with the miles per hour, it looks like that ball is kind of right down the pipe. And it kind of goes back to what we've been saying about Arrieta. You almost wonder if that was the kind of ball McCutchen would hit out of the park when he's right.
And that discussion will continue about McCutchen as Freeze will dump that one into center. Hayward coming up throwing, and they'll hold McCutchen at third. They're not going to test the arm of Hayward in center. And probably a good decision.
He played that really nice. And remember, Hayward is a guy who's moved around a little bit because the Cubs have had injuries and they've shuffled outfielders all over. Chris Bryant out there, Chris Bryant left, Chris Bryant right. So it's a guy not entirely comfortable, especially with the ball right at you. Can be very difficult to play, but he played it perfectly.
Yeah, those last 2 balls, 99 miles an hour off the bat of Polanco, 93 from McCutchen. And, look at that. That last one was a sinker that didn't really sink right down the pipe. He's throwing hard, Arrieta is, and that's a great sign. It's just all about movement for him. That ball was 94.8 miles an hour. That's great. There's absolutely nothing wrong with that. But you can't throw it right down the middle without movement because a good big league hitter is going to handle that.
Starry Marte with a big swing and a miss there. And McCutchen, we've talked about him a lot, and obviously he's one of the more recognizable players on the Pirates team. And not that you judge the guys solely on exit velocity, but it's certainly decreased even over this season.
He's been trying to play through a thumb injury, and I think we know a lot about guys trying to play through injury. There's a lot of reasons they might want to, but for the most part, it hurts themselves in the team. And I think he's been playing through a heel injury as well. He has been struggling. Now, it was a really nice piece of hitting right there, but a pitch where, if he was healthy, does he take it out? Does a better Arrieta not let him double? You can kind of see here.
Yeah.
Everything is down this year except for the strikeout percentage, which is up. And this is a guy who's been a superstar. And, there's a lot of talk about should they trade him, shouldn't they trade him. I don't know that the Pirates are really ready to think about themselves as sellers yet, but it's an interesting conversation to be had.
A jam shot there, and Baez will throw out Marte, and the inning will come to an end, so a couple of guys stranded here in the third. 3-0 Pittsburgh leading. Time for us to give you an explanation of exactly what the launch angle is.
Launch angle is a measure of the vertical angle of a batted ball, indicating whether the ball was hit on the ground or in the air, and beyond that, to what extremes. A launch angle of 0 degrees would be right back at the pitcher's release point, and that means negative numbers are possible, indicating ground balls. Roughly 10 degrees to 25 degrees are where line drives live, and fly balls are between 25 degrees and 50 degrees. The sweet spot, so to speak, for launch angle is between 25 and 30 degrees, a narrow band straddling line drives and fly balls that accounted for 35% of all Major League home runs in 2015. Similar to exit velocity, launch angle is by itself a very useful tool in identifying the type of batted ball that was hit, but combining the two is vital in truly understanding batted ball distance. Let's show 3 batted balls that were all hit at an identical 100 miles per hour, but with hugely different results. Seattle's Nelson Cruz hit a ball off Houston's Colin McHugh at 100 miles per hour at a 30-degree launch angle, right within the ideal 25 to 30-degree sweet spot. 424 feet later, it was well beyond the left field wall. But while it's definitely possible to hit a home run at 100 miles per hour, it requires the right launch angle. Texas's Mitch Moreland also hits a ball at 100 miles per hour, but at a 50-degree launch angle, right on the border between a fly ball and a pop-up. In the other direction, Philadelphia's Ryan Howard had his own 100-mile-per-hour batted ball, but since it had a launch angle of just 10 degrees, it became a 4-3 groundout.
As we look at PNC Park in Pittsburgh, one of the better views from high atop Roberto Clemente Bridge. And there's a good look at Starling Marte, who did not win in the final fan vote for the All-Star game. And I think there's a lot of folks out there in Pittsburgh that scratch their head and say, why not?
Well, Brandon Belt has the Bay Area, who is somewhat tech savvy, if you have.
Good point. Good point.
But I don't think Starling Marte should get too down just yet, because this Dexter Fowler situation is still out there. He's rehabbing the next couple of days, and then we'll make a decision. I understand what Kerry was telling us, that he's 30 years old. You don't know when he'll get an opportunity to do this again. He really wants to play in the All-Star game. They have to be really sure he's healthy, because as she said, he is arguably their most valuable player on a team that has Chris Bryant and Anthony Rizzo. And if they're not 100% sure that he is good to play in that game, I don't know why you would risk it. If he doesn't play in that game, I think Starling Marte is a logical next step. Ryan Braun has an argument as well, another player who was in the final vote. Both of those guys have been very productive, certainly all-star caliber players. It's just a question of, will a spot open?
Yeah, imagine Fowler goes out there and tries to catch up to a Dylan Betances fastball and re-injures himself in the All-Star. A disaster. Because you're right, he probably has been their most valuable player, which is mind-blowing to think about with the talent on this team.
Russell hitting that ball hard, but 3, he's able to pull that one in for out number 1. And that'll bring up Jason Hayward, who recently was moved down to the lineup to the 6th spot. Old school philosophy and RBI spot. And I think in theory was more of a, let's take a little pressure off of Jason Hayward kind of a situation.
July's been his best month, but in a very weird way. He's taking more walks than ever. He's barely struck out at all. He's making a ton of contact, but he just hasn't had any power. His on-base percentage this month, nearly 400, which is great. Slugging percentage, 346, not so much.
Yeah, and that's not what the Cubs got him for. No. They did not get an on-base machine for 8 years, $184 million. They want a guy with some slug. He did not hit a home run this season until May 17th. It came in Milwaukee against Chase Anderson, and there was so much consternation about where is this guy's power. Then he hits this home run. He went on a nice hot streak. Really, there was a period in June where he was a pretty effective hitter, getting on base a lot and actually driving the ball a little bit, but he hasn't necessarily sustained the slug for whatever reason.
No, not at all. And he's been banged up, right? We saw that great play in San Francisco where he had to come out for a couple of days. He had a sore wrist. I think he got ribs out of that San Francisco deal. The defense has been there. The defense has been everything they hoped for and more. It's made I think, a big difference in that outfield, because you look at the outfield last year, Kyle Schwarber is never really much of an outfielder. Soler's been okay. He has come in and really made a big difference on defense.
Saved a run that last half inning.
Exactly right. He's an outstanding outfielder, and that's why they paid him, but you expect a little more from the bat than they've seen.
Very true. Full count. Hit pretty well in the center. McCutchen going back, still drifting back, and can't get it. I think that's going to still be in play. Hayward is headed toward third, and he will stand with a triple. Missed a homer by an inch or so.
Well, that's the downside of the Pirates pulling in their outfielders to play a little bit shallower, because that's an extra 10 feet or so that McCutchen's got to run to get that ball. That ball hung up for a while, and it just kept carrying and carrying. You wonder if McCutchen could have gotten there had he been starting back. Obviously, they pulled him in for very good reasons. That ball missed going out by, inches? That hit above the ketchup bottle out there on the wall.
Look at that. McCutchen hit the ketchup bottle so hard it popped the top off and started spilling.
And like we were saying, he continues just to slug like mad. But that's a big hit. That is a big moment for Hayward. And look, against a lefty, he's a guy who long was known as can't hit lefties. It was one of the things that, before he signed with St. Louis, it was one of the things that I think kept a lot of teams from really going after him hard. He's balanced that out a little bit. If there's a silver lining, it's that he's actually this year better on base and about the same slugging, better slugging against lefties than righties, which is odd considering the way his career began.
MLB Plus being presented by T-Mobile. Now, if you're checking us out here as we provide some enhanced coverage of the Pirates and the Cubs from PNC Park. A big series as the mythical first half of the season wraps up. Both these teams passed the 81 game mark.
So we have PNC Park as a dead center 399, and then it tapers off to 375 as you go into the right field power alley. That ball was tracked as going 396 feet, which is about as close as you can get to getting it out of there without actually getting it out.
If you look at the defensive alignment for Javier Baez, who's turned into the Sean Rodriguez of the Cubs this year. Rodriguez used in many different spots for Joe Madden when he was in Tampa. As a matter of fact, you look at Rodriguez, the only two positions he hasn't played in his entire career are pitcher and catcher. He's played everywhere else.
I hope to see the game where he has to play catcher.
You don't want to see him pitch?
I feel like, I'm a little played out on position players pitching. We've had so many over the last couple weeks.
I think those breaking news alerts on Twitter aren't even breaking news anymore with position players pitching.
I think versatility is valued more in the game now, and a lot of the quote-unquote new GMs, to me, seem to value the players who can play all over the diamond. And you see guys like Ben Zobrist are much more common. Not just guys who can play lots of different positions, but guys who are very good at lots of different positions.
Part of that is teams insist on carrying 12, 13, 14 pitchers now. You have, we did a Mets game last week or 2 weeks ago where Granderson couldn't play, and he was still on the bench. And they had, I think, 2 healthy bench guys, and they couldn't hit for their pitchers when they need to. So you're right, having the versatility, it's necessary.
Good job of hitting here by Baez to get the run home. A great play there by Harrison as well at second base on a tough hop. So they were able to come in a 3-1 lead now for the Pirates. And 2 outs from Miguel Montero, who was hit by a pitch in the second inning. Jackson takes a strike there. It's interesting that Baez and Montero were both hit by pitch in the second back-to-back. In the 9th inning of last night's game, it was Bryant and then Rizzo back-to-back being hit by pitches against the Braves. And this will end the Cubs' 4th. But they do get a run on the board on the long near home run that wound up being a triple. And now a 3-1 ball game here as the Pirates will get to bat in the bottom of the 4th inning back inside our studios here in New York. Andy Mazur along with Mike Petriello and Adam McCalvey as we watch along with this game. And, now it's kind of going to be interesting to see, the Cubs get Arrieta a run. Does he settle back in a little bit more now and maybe not worry as much mechanically, knowing that his offense has some life?
I don't think it's about the offense. I think if he could fix his mechanics, he'd fix them regardless of whether they're hitting or not hitting. I think if I'm the Cubs, I'm a little bit worried now. This is a couple of starts in a row. What did you say? Back-to-back with 4 earned runs? We're well on our way to 3 in a row, and that's not the feeling you want going into the All-Star break.
Yeah, again, I was going to say back-to-back-to-back of 3 earned runs.
Okay, then.
Which for many pitchers would be, well, 3 straight 3 earned runs, that's okay. But this is Jake Arrieta. And the overall, again, the big picture for this season is that he's still a really great pitcher. He's an all-star and deservedly so. But this dip is certainly concerning to the Cubs. But good news, the velocity is hot tonight. And I think he's got that going for him.
You know he's healthy, right? That's
he's
always the concern.
Let's take a look at some of these stories nationally making some news. Here in Major League Baseball, the New York Mets with another blow to their pitching staff. The Dark Knight is out for the season. He's going to undergo surgery. I'm going to let you guys pronounce the whole thing out there, but surgery on his shoulder.
No, exactly. It's his rib. They're going to be removing a rib. Is what
thoracic outlet surgery.
I'm just going to step all over you guys here. Matt Harvey, whatever. Max Scherzer, whatever. Bartolo Colon's going to the All-Star game. How exciting is that? Who is not happy about that?
Yeah, Bartolo Colon, who is featured in an ad right now on the Mets Twitter page, modeling a fedora that they're going to be giving away on their next homestand. I
was there for Fedora Night last year. I have one for you if you'd like one.
No, I just love the picture of Bartolo Colon, all happy with a fedora on.
I can't wait. I'm flying out tomorrow morning. I can't wait to see Bartolo Colon at the All-Star game.
If I'm the Mets, though, I might want Bartolo Colon to stay home and get in a bubble and not get.
He's the most reliable starter they have right now.
And look at their health issues right now. Harvey out, Syndergaard, the issue with the bone spur is concerning. Is it not concerning? Steven Matz has an injury issue. I don't know. If I'm a Mets fan, I might be like, Bartolo, go to the game, tip your cap on the foul line, and then go sit in the bullpen and do not get in the game.
Yeah, and this isn't Dusty Baker who made this choice. This is Terry Collins who wants him to come, right? He could have very easily kept him out.
So Steven Strasburg, as you saw the last note there with Max Scherzer being named to the All-Star team replacing Strasburg. And it will be very interesting to see how the New York Mets manager handles the Washington Nationals pitchers during the All-Star game. We were kind of joking before the show. Yeah, go pitch 7 innings. Go for it,
Yeah, well, fortunately now he's got, I guess Strasburg's out, so he's just got Scherzer. He's like, hey, it's all you. Complete game.
Let's go. Finish what you started, pal. Come on. I know it's the All-Star game, but it counts.
Max Scherzer pitched the best game I ever saw live in my life, and I might go the rest of my life and never see a better game. A game in Milwaukee. The only game was a Carlos Gomez broken bat hit that dunked over the second baseman, and Gomez afterward said he felt bad. Because if you're going to break up a no-hitter, it was at a perfect game at the time, you at least want to do it with a clean hit. He literally felt bad about doing this, felt some guilt, but it was the finest game I ever saw live. Dominant when he's right.
MLB Plus being brought to you by and presented by T-Mobile. As Harrison expands the zone there, and it is strikeout victim number 4 for Jake Arrieta. Jason Hayward just missing a home run. Let's check out the triple using StatCast, powered by Amazon Web Services.
101 miles an hour. That is some lefty-on-lefty violence there. And you can see just being ever so close to getting out of the yard. McCutchen maybe had a play on it. Polanco comes up and get it. But watch Hayward. He doesn't really get off to a great start out of the box here. He thinks it might go out. Starts jogging just a little bit. And then after that, I better start running here.
So that's one where launch angle is important, right? The 33 degrees, it's just too high.
25 to 30 is like the sweet spot for home runs. You hit it 100 miles an hour, which is good, but you can still get it out of the park if you hit it a little further than that. And then obviously there's environmental effects. Like, are you playing in Coors Field? Is it really hot and humid? Is there the wind at your back? There's actually a lot that goes into it.
Good look from behind home plate from our T-Mobile greater coverage cam at PNC Park. A beautiful skyline, a great look at downtown Pittsburgh.
Not my favorite press box because it is in outer space. You need oxygen, but it's the best view in baseball.
Oh, it's way up there, but yeah, I mean, at nighttime, when dusk starts to come and the sun shines off of that one building out there, if you're in the press box, it blinds you for about 2 or 3 outs. But the water shimmering off of the Allegheny River, and it's an impressive little ballpark they put up there. So now back-to-back strikeouts, Arrieta with 5. And in that at bat, he may have broken off one of his better curveballs we've seen in a long time.
Yeah, called strike, I think it was, and we're still seeing flashes of the old Arrieta. So I don't think he's quote-unquote broken or anything like that. It's just the lack of consistency that's really hurting him.
Well, how'd you enjoy that inning?
It was great. I hope they all go like that.
That inning went by very quickly. 1, 2, 3.
That's Jake Arrieta.
Jake Arrieta doing his job there and keeping the Pirates off the board 3-1. As we have now finished 4 innings at PNC Park. And we're throwing a lot of stats at you and a lot of names and things at you. Just what is StatCast? Well, here's the explanation.
Several years of research and development were realized in 2014 with the debut of MLB.com's StatCast, the first ever reliable measurement of every play on a baseball field. Pioneered by MLB Advanced Media and debuted with prototypes at the 2014 All-Star Game, League Championship Series, and World Series, StatCast's roots can be traced back roughly a decade earlier to MLBAM's introduction of pitch tracking. Pitch tracking delivered a never-before-seen wealth of detailed information regarding every pitch thrown in the major leagues. Though a bold move at the time, today, pitch tracking technology is ubiquitous throughout broadcast television and baseball's digital products. But despite the data compiled on pitching, never before have there been reliable defensive statistics. The goal with StatCast was to leverage the technology to ensure that defense could be quantified and that a more complete picture of our game be made available to fans. To that end, all 30 ballparks have been outfitted with two distinctly different but collaborative technologies to allow for the data capture, optical tracking, and radar tracking. High-definition video camera arrays spaced 15 meters apart to capture stereoscopic video, and a 3D Doppler radar system which captures 2,000 samples per second of the entire baseball field. By marrying the data from each of these systems, it is now possible to scientifically quantify the skills and talents of players on the field using new player performance metrics.
And back at PNC Park, where the score is 3-1 in favor of the Pirates, Jake Arrieta will lead it off here for the Cubs. An 8-pitch inning.
8 pitches, 7 strikes, and you asked going into that inning, was it a situation where he'd see the Cubs offense have some life and come out and shut it down? That's what he did. He got a strikeout on a slider, a strikeout on a changeup, and then a first pitch ground out on a fastball. That was a 2015 Jake Arrieta inning.
I didn't want to brag or anything, but I saw the sign he gave me on the camera, said he was going to be okay that inning.
Sure seemed like it worked out.
Do you believe that? I got a big old bridge to sell you. Arrieta with a big swing and a miss there on a pitch around 90 miles an hour from Francisco Liriano. Arrieta, one of those pitchers that takes a lot of pride in his hitting as well.
They got a couple homers this year, and he might need to help himself because Liriano looks like he's settled down a little bit. Got through the first couple innings, but wasn't terribly impressive. And even though he gave up the run the last inning, he's actually looked a little bit better. Of course, then he buries one in the dirt right there, 55 feet. So,
yeah, I'm curious too with all the issues that have been going on with the Pirates and their catchers. Cervelli is out, Chris Stewart is out. You get Fryer from the Cardinals, and now you get Kratz. A couple of journeymen, and what's that done to the pitching staff? Because it's not an underrated thing to have a catcher there that you can trust.
Yeah, neither of those guys were in camp this year.
Yeah.
So it's like, how many of these pitchers do they even know? It might be, go out to the mound, nice to meet you. What do you throw?
Yeah,
that can't be an easy situation.
Especially with all the young guys coming up for the Pirates.
Exactly, and you lean on your pitching coach in this situation. And the Pirates happen to have one of the best in baseball in Ray Searage, and his job becomes all the more important. And look, Eric Kratz, for example, this is a guy who has been around everywhere, in the minor leagues forever, a journeyman. It's the type of guy you really like to have. And Eric Fryer is kind of the same way. It took these guys a long time to get to the big leagues. They handled a lot of different pitchers in the minor leagues, and it's a good guy to plug in when you have all these young prospects.
Yeah, Kratz didn't make his debut until he was 30 years old. He was actually with the Pirates in the minors 6 or 7 years ago. So he's really been around. And over the last 3 seasons, Toronto, KC, Philly, Houston, Pittsburgh, 190 on base percentage overall. So that's not really his game, but ideally, he's supposed to be a very highly regarded defensive backstop, and I assume he has to be.
And he can pitch.
Nice pitch right there.
A knee buckler.
And he can pitch. That's right.
Slider there by Liriano. That looked like it was going to be a foot outside and came right back over the plate.
You can tell that Arrieta not super thrilled about that one.
No.
We're on the internet, though, so we could probably show what he said.
Guess what? Francisco Liriano leads off the fifth. You think he's going to get one of those pitches?
Arrieta will take that call, though.
Very true. So here's Zobrist. Reached on a tough error. Charge to David Freese. And flied out to start the game in the leadoff spot here for the Cubs tonight.
Starting the All-Star game by 88 votes.
How about that?
That was, I think it makes sense that was the closest because you look at him and Murphy.
Yeah.
I would have gone with Murphy. I think he's having the better season, but you certainly can't quibble with the fact that Ben Zobrist is starting. He's been unbelievable. He's having probably the best season of his career, even though he's been slumping.
I have the solution to this, by the way. If Dexter Fowler cannot play in the game, Zobrist can play everywhere.
Yeah,
so let's
he can play center.
Yeah, let's do that, and then Murphy can start at second base, and you've got the right guys.
Well, it's funny you say that because I've had the exact same thought, but with a different Cub. Because I've said I want to put Chris Bryant in the outfield because National League third base is unbelievably loaded. You know, you have Matt Carpenter, I know he's been playing second. Nolan Arenado, I think, is an unbelievable player, and Jake Lamb, who can't find his way on the roster, is leading the National League in slugging. So you put those guys at third, you put Bryant in the outfield, done. You're done.
Perfect. If only we were in charge.
And you put Jake Lamb there, you get to see the Lamb with the sombrero again.
Jake Lamb is having such an incredible year. It's too bad he's not. I mean, all the guys in the final vote were deserving statistical all-stars.
No doubt.
But to have the slugging percentage, does he still lead the National League in slugging?
He does. He's out hitting Paul Goldschmidt.
And he's not. Yeah, it's very. I mean, if he keeps playing like this, obviously he'll get there. That's what they're going to tell him today.
Zobrist able to stay alive, even though Eric Kratz thought that pitch before was strike 3. Stood up ready to throw the ball down to third. Alfonso Marquez, the home plate umpire, said, "Not so fast." So Zobrist trying to get a little feeling back on the toes there. He fouled that one off his foot. MLB Plus, powered by Amazon Web Services here from Pittsburgh's PNC Park.
I mean, we were talking about how stacked third base is in baseball. And you think about Chris Bryant, maybe the National League MVP, at least in the conversation, right? He's only having the 5th best offensive season by a third baseman in baseball. And you think, you look at, oh, well, Josh Donaldson, okay, he's great, but Machado's great, Lamb's great, Carpenter's great, and Arenado's great, and, half a dozen, Danny Valencia is having an amazing season. Half a dozen guys we haven't even gotten to. There are so many good third basemen in baseball right now. Even you might call this the golden age of third base. You might.
I like it. At least the silver age. Now, how about that? Zobrist draws the base on balls. Second walk and a couple of hit batsmen by Liriano in the game. This is what Zobrist does, and he provides a veteran at bat. And that's one thing that Theo Epstein was talking about during the week up in Chicago when they're asking him about panic setting in and this kind of thing. He said, "Hey, listen, this is baseball. This is what happens through the grind of 162 games." He said, "But I don't think our guys are approaching at bats the way they did at the beginning of the season. And when you could call the Cubs offense relentless at the beginning of the year, it's not the same."
They built up such a cushion for themselves early in the year with what they did offensively that even through this stretch, I said this a while ago, but 5.2 runs per game, first in baseball. To score more runs than the Colorado Rockies is really impressive, especially after a cold streak. Pittsburgh is 6th on that list at 4.63. So they've been sort of an average offensive team, but in scoring, just in terms of raw scoring, they've actually been pretty good. But this Cubs team still first in the National League, 346 on base.
That's the thing. Obviously, they've been slumping, no doubt about it. But when people kind of freak out about it, you realize the alternative is that you thought they would continue what they were doing and win 125 games.
And that's just
that was never going to happen.
That's ludicrous to think.
It looked like it was going to.
Well, something like that.
The brain told you it wasn't going to.
But you know what? If this means they end up, 99 and 63, I think that'll be just fine.
Yeah. 1-1 on Bryant. One of 7 Cubs All-Stars, and a special moment for Bryant. As you look at Joe Madden, the Cubs manager, Bryant played his collegiate baseball at the University of San Diego at Torero, and his final year, he hit 31 home runs as a junior. He out-homered pretty much every other school combined. I mean, just think about that. As Zobrist gets in under the tag, a little head-first slide at second base.
Do you have some data about park factors at that?
No, I don't, but I'll tell you what, 820 slugging percentage even in college plays.
That's heavy. I don't know where it is, but that's got to be heavier in San Diego. Anyway, that's impressive.
So for Bryant to go back, and also for Anthony Rizzo, who started his big league career with the Padres. So 2-2 now on Bryant. here in the top of the 5th. And the full count. You know, Mike, you were talking about the fact that Bryant's strikeout percentage is down. It even looked like last year when it was up where it was that he had a pretty good idea of what the strike zone was.
Yeah, I mean, if you're going to have a guy with that much power, you kind of assume you're going to get a lot of swing and miss. And then, you know, in today's game, that's just the way it works. No one really gets that upset about it. But he kind of decided, I want to cut it. And he did by really almost a third. I mean, it was 30% last year. I think it's down to about 23% this year. You know, that's a big deal. And he's hitting more home runs. So he's cut the strikeouts and not lost the power. It doesn't usually work that way. That's how he becomes one of baseball's biggest superstars. You can see exactly here. Home run per fly ball percentage. It means he's getting more home runs per fly balls he puts in the air, fewer strikeouts. It's actually cut the launch angle down a little bit. We've had this graphic. We've done a bunch of Cubs games in a row. That was actually a bigger difference a couple weeks ago. He's actually kind of crept up a little bit more in recent weeks. You kind of see every part of the Cubs is really just getting not quite as tight as it has been, but you can kind of see what he's been trying to do.
I think they call that a market correction. You know, when the stock market goes too high.
Like regression.
A little correction on things.
The specificity, though, that he talked about launch angle was great. He talks about wanting 22 to 26%, right? Did you see
degrees.
That? Degrees, yes. Exactly. Which is, I love the fact that he knows exactly what he's aiming for.
I think that's a great, and you know, another guy who talks like that is Mark Trumbo, who is having a phenomenal year. He's going to be in the home run derby. He kind of talked about the same thing. He says a game of his he likes to play is watching batted balls or home runs and sort of guessing what the exit velocity and launch angle is. And he says, I'm usually pretty close. I mean, good for him. He's having a great year.
You need to send those guys some StatCast t-shirts, I think, for being such good ambassadors.
Second to go on T-Mobile Greater Coverage Cam, showing you the little conversation on the mound between Ray Searage and the starter, Francisco Liriano, who has walked a couple here after one out, and Anthony Rizzo now at the plate.
You know, it's important to know, we talked a lot about Liriano not being able to hit the plate and giving up a lot of walks. So the Cubs are the most patient team in baseball. They have the highest walk percentage in baseball.
And the first pitch swing by Anthony Rizzo, and an unproductive out. Everybody stays put at first and second. As we look back at the Ben Zobrist steal of second base in StatCast, powered by Amazon Web Services.
Yeah, I love that we have the throw distance because, you know, just from the home plate to second base, 120 feet. That's just the way the math works. But we show 125, and you can see that the guys, you don't really think about it that way. But, of course, the catcher's not on home plate, is He's a couple feet back. It's just an interesting way to realize that it's actually kind of a long throw that these guys have to make.
And 19.4 miles an hour is pretty good. I'm actually kind of surprised to see Ben Zobrist get there.
The elite guys get up to 22, 23-ish. So for Zobrist, you know, he's not a young guy anymore. That is really impressive.
So it's up to Contreras again to try to get the Cubs a little bit closer. The tying runs are on base here in the 5th.
This is my favorite part about the Cubs roster this year is Wilson Contreras, you know, is a nicer regarded prospect. But somebody gets hurt and they call him up. Yeah. You know? Somebody else gets hurt, here comes Albert Almora. Yeah. They lost Kyle Schwarber, and they essentially replaced him with a different version of Kyle Schwarber, who's actually a bit of a better outfielder, right? They lost Fowler. They lost Soler, and up comes Albert Almora, who is a really good defensive outfielder. They're just bursting with talent.
That's one guy not a lot of people are talking about with the Cubs injury list is Soler.
Yes, I agree. And he's always had the tools. I really thought this was the year he was going to put it together, and just he saw the flashes. He hit some real home runs, but he just was not able to kind of put it together, and then he got hurt, and now, you know, everybody's maybe, is he trade bait for a pitcher? I'm sure there's a lot of teams that'd like to get their hands on him.
Kratz with a snap throw back behind Zobrist at second base. From his knees.
Look at that tailing action, right back to the base. I love that. That was a great angle.
I was just going to say quick on the in terms of the Cubs' depth. I mean, this is why teams dive headfirst into rebuilding, and they're not ashamed about it. The Cubs had those losing seasons from 2010 to 14, and they came away with all these draft picks because of it. Baez in 2011, 9th overall. Almora the next year, 6th overall. Chris Bryant, 2nd overall. Schwarber, 4th overall. And now one of their prospects, Ian Happ, an infielder, goes 9th overall the next year. So if you go big into rebuilding, it can pay dividends if you hit on those guys.
Yeah, it works. But you know what also helps? You look at the Cubs and you look at the Astros. What else do they have in common? Finding broken pitchers and making them all-stars.
Better, yeah, exactly right. So the Cubs let Liriano off the hook again with a couple of men on and cannot score. We welcome you back into our studios here in New York. Andy Mazur, Adam McCalvey, and Mike Petriello with you. We want to bring in the other member of our broadcast here, and that's our social media private.
Yep, that's
Ashley
me.
Chavez, what do you got going for us?
Well, we got a lot of great questions going on right now, which is fantastic. I love that because we love getting to those. And a lot of excited people because this game has been wonderful and going by very fast. I don't know, just knock on wood. But anyways, from the South Bend Cubs, we have the leading off, our designated hitter, Dexter Fowler, which is fantastic. We're definitely wishing him a speedy recovery and speedy rehab, because you definitely want to see them out there in San Diego.
He walked in his first at-bat, and so far as I know, did not hurt himself. So far, so good.
Oh, that's great. Yeah, we'll keep you posted on that. Guys, next, tomorrow, Fedora
awesome.
giveaway with America's favorite all-star, Mr. Bartolo Colon. Look at that. That's great.
I got to change my flight and get out to the park so I can get one of those.
Yeah, I know.
Does it come with a picture?
Well, it should. I'm going to leave work early.
Last year they were not plaid, and I'm sort of disappointed in the Cubs that the one I got is just blue and I think with an orange band.
Oh, yeah, and it doesn't have Bartolo in it, so.
No.
And lastly, Mike, I'm going to throw this one to you because it is directed to you.
Oh, boy.
High spin rates are good for four-seam fastballs, curveballs, and sliders, correct? The higher, the more Ks.
Yeah, that's a lot of pressure. For the most part, yeah. So I'm glad that this person specified the pitches because high spin is not great for everything. Like we talked about sinkers and two-seamers, you don't want high spin. You want low spin. Change-ups, anything that dives, you don't want high spin because you don't want it to stay up. You want it to dive. But curveballs, absolutely, it's got top spin. You want it to dig itself into the ground. Four-seam fastballs with backspin, you want it to stay up. So that Twitter person is exactly correct.
Nice. Ashley, thank you very much. We'll check back with you for some more tweets a little bit later in the show as we get ready to go back to baseball here. And again, the Cubs are basically getting guys on base, but they're not able to get those runs in when they've needed to so far tonight.
No, but what the hitting coach will tell you, they say this over and over and over, and I guarantee you, someone said this in the dugout. You keep doing it, and you're going to score runs. You put men on, the hits are going to come. And this goes to, is hitting with runners in scoring position a thing? And I think that we have come to understand that it's not a thing.
It's not a thing.
Just put guys on base, and that will produce runs in the end.
It is a thing that happens, but it's not necessarily a skill.
Yeah.
Right? And I think that kind of goes like, oh, are you clutch? And now people will say, well, Miguel Cabrera's clutch because he hits well in high-pressure situations. And I say, he's Miguel Cabrera. He hits well in all situations. So he's just being himself.
And Francisco Liriano leading off with a single to left field. Let's head back out to PNC Park in Pittsburgh and welcome in Dan Zangrilli, who is the pre- and post-game host on The Fan out in Pittsburgh. As we welcome in Dan. And Dan, first of all, let's talk about Francisco Liriano. We talked about all the walks, but so far the Cubs have kind of let him off the hook.
Yeah, they certainly have, and he needs a big start. There's been talk in Pittsburgh about him potentially being a candidate to be moved. I don't know if that's necessarily the case, but he walked just one batter his last outing. The wildness, I think, is creeping up so far this evening. It's going to be interesting to see if he can get more swings and misses. That's really been the biggest difference for Liriano this year. And, of course, the Cubs really continuing to scuffle, as you mentioned, not being able to take advantage of the opportunities they have had against him.
Dan, it's Adam McKelvey. Let me ask you this, because this is my favorite Pittsburgh Pirates topic, and you are probably worn out on it. Should they and will they look at dealing Andrew McCutchen?
I'm actually a proponent of at least exploring that. You'll recall, Adam, they had Nate McLeod in 2009. They just recently signed to a contract, and they were able to trade him to the Braves for Jeff Locke, Charlie Morton, Gorkys Hernandez. That was 7 years ago. They're still reaping the rewards of that trade. I believe that they would be trading from an area of strength, and I know it would be a very unpopular thing to say here in Pittsburgh, and the fans would really have a hard time accepting that. But I think that Starling Marte is more than ready to become an everyday center fielder. In fact, I think he's a better defender. I'm sure that the metrics will bear that out than Andrew McCutchen. And if you can get an absolute haul in return, I'm not sure why they wouldn't at least explore that. Though I think you all would agree that you never, ever want to trade a guy at the lowest point in his career. And currently, I think McCutchen is there. Far from his apex.
Hey, Dan, it's Mike Petriello. I wanted to ask you about the manager of the Pirates, Clint Hurdle. He was with the Rockies, and he was kind of seen as a very kind of old-school guy, and now he's come over to the Pirates, and he's really bought into the stats and analytics. Can you tell us a little bit about his progression as a manager?
Absolutely. The evidence has been irrefutable, and I think that the trust of the analytics department led by Dan Fox and Mike Fitzgerald took a little while for Hurdle to embrace his first couple of years in 2011, 2012. But because the Pirates had gotten off to terrific first halves in 11 and 12 and essentially collapsed, missing the postseason, and had gone on for their 20th straight losing season, there was, I think, almost a need or a mandate, if you will, for Hurdle to embrace more analytics, and that would include the defensive shifting. And then they win 94 games in 2013. He became a believer. He started integrating Fox and Fitzgerald and the information that they would provide into his game plan, but also into the advanced scout meetings, which is really, I think, revolutionary. I'm not sure many managers, if any, have done that before, or at least before Hurdle started doing that in 13, and bridging the gap between the analytics department and the traditional scouting and coaching department has been something that many organizations have struggled with, because it's been two factions, usually on opposite sides of the spectrum. And for analytics to work well with traditional anecdotal concepts in baseball, that's where you got to go ahead and, bridge that gap. Hurdle's done a very good job at it. And just as I say, trade Andrew McCutchen shows how smart I am.
No, we've been doing that all night, Dan. It's fine. Let me ask you a question that we were just talking about up here in the last half inning about the Pirates sort of piecing together catcher. And at the same time, they're having to bring up all these top pitching prospects and put guys in there. How have they dealt with that? How have they overcome the loss of having a steady catcher?
It's really been amazing. And Francisco Cervelli, grades out analytically as one of the best catchers in the game on the offensive side of the ball and the defensive side of the ball. Losing him has been detrimental, I think, to the process. And Chris Stewart also is on the disabled list with a left knee issue. And very few organizations are 5-6 deep as far as catching is concerned. They had Eric Kratz in their organization before. They've had Eric Fryer in their organization before. And these quad A guys, if you will, have found other organizations. But I think during their time here in Pittsburgh, the way that they were able to integrate with the pitching staff at the time really left a favorable impression on general manager Neil Huntington and Clint Hurdle, for that matter. And when the opportunity arose, they were able to bring those two guys back and I think seamlessly integrate them to the philosophy, which wasn't exactly foreign to them. And that has helped because they've been able to hit the ground running.
Dan, we appreciate the time. Thanks for the knowledge, and we'll catch up with you soon.
All right, you got it, guys. Thanks.
Dan Zangrilli, the Pirates pre- and post-game host on The Fan in Pittsburgh, joining us as our coverage continues from a PNC Park and here in New York. 3-1, the Pirates lead, threatening with first and second and 2 outs. And a jam shot. And that'll be taken by Baez, and he'll tag the bag. And Jake Arrieta bobbing and weaving out of that one with a couple of runners on. He will strand them right where they are, and the inning will come to an end. And the Pirates have a 3-1 lead here after 5 innings of play. Our T-Mobile Greater coverage reporter Anthony Kastrovitz caught up with David Freese before the game and talked to him about what it was like to be joining the Pittsburgh Pirates.
He's sitting at home middle of March, and to end up at an organization like this, a group of guys like this, I couldn't ask for anything more. Obviously, like you said, the winter was a little long, longer than I'm used to, but it all worked out. A lot of these guys have been around for so long. We understand it's gonna be a grind for 6 months, and you're gonna have your ups and downs. But you got to stick around. That's the whole goal here, is to stick around and win ball games, whether it's in April or September. They all matter. And I think the younger guys that are coming up are bringing some energy and excitement, and we're proud of where we're at right now.
So there is David Freese of the Pittsburgh Pirates. He has a home run in the ball game here tonight and a 3-1 lead for the Pirates as the Cubs come to bat here in the 6th inning. MLB Plus presented by T-Mobile. Freese has been a nice addition to this ball club, and you kind of think, as he was saying, where he came from as a cult hero in St. Louis, then being traded to the Angels, and now finding himself with the Pirates.
1 year, $3 million might be the best pick of the entire offseason. He's having a career almost identical to his career season in 2012 with St. Louis. He's 32 percentage points above average as a hitter, 473 slugging, 374 on base. I mean, that's a great little pickup there.
Anthony Castrovince, our T-Mobile Greater coverage reporter out at PNC Park, joins us once again. And a nice conversation you had there with David Freese. And it is kind of hard to believe that it wasn't that long ago that he was the World Series hero and a National League Championship Series MVP.
Yeah, absolutely. Mike just referenced that 2012 season. I actually remember talking to Lance Berkman. It was like the first week of that season, and of course Freese was coming off the World Series heroics. And I remember he pointed to him in the clubhouse. He goes, "There's your first $200 million guy right there." And it was ridiculous because Freese was like 28 years old, I think, at the time. But it just kind of goes to show how he was viewed in that clubhouse at that moment. And had a strong 2012, but just had trouble getting traction since then. And 2015 season, going into his free agency, did not go the way he'd like, and free agency did not go the way he'd like. Signs here for $3 million, and they've got great value out of him. He wasn't signed to necessarily be an everyday guy because they knew they'd have Young Ho Kong coming back sooner than later. But he's basically been an everyday guy. He's forced himself in that lineup on a pretty consistent basis.
Anthony, let me ask you, being around the clubhouse in Pittsburgh and just being around the city of Pittsburgh, has this recent hot streak of the Pirates sort of gotten everybody energized again? Because that seemed like a franchise that looked like it was nearing a turning point.
Yeah, it kind of has had the feel of a transition year, which nobody wants to hear that. And they got spoiled here the last few years with these excellent seasons. I think it gets spoiled as far as October goes because they got forced in that wild card game and just kind of bad geography there. Being over those 3 seasons, the Pirates had the second best record in baseball, behind only the St. Louis Cardinals, of course. So just bad luck there, and maybe some bad luck here with the way the Cubs season started. But you're starting to feel a little more optimism. But like we were talking about earlier, guys, I mean, really, it's got to come together from a starting pitching standpoint. So this is a pretty encouraging outing for Liriano, working out of these jams because he's a guy who's labored a bit, and they need him to be, kind of that veteran presence. And, Garrett Cole will be back soon. He'll make a rehab start on Sunday, so that's huge for them. But yeah, it's that road trip was a very, very necessary thing because going into it, the conversation was definitely started to shift towards, are they going to sell? Is the great run over, and have to start thinking about the next score? And there's some truth to that because we're seeing the next score and the guys are calling up. But, this is still a very strong baseball team and finally starting to look like itself with strong bullpen, and the offense has been pretty solid all year.
Anthony, it's Mike. Gregory Polanco has really had a breakout season. He's pushed his slugging percentage up from 381 to 507. What have you seen from him that's really allowed him to take that next step?
Well, he's a guy who always struggled mightily against lefties early in his career, and he's improved that a little bit. In general, I think he's just more comfortable. I talked to him a little bit before today's game, and we hear so much about David Ortiz this season, and for good reason. And you kind of see his influence even extend to other organizations. Polanco worked with him quite a bit in the offseason, and he said that was a major help, just in every area of the game, on the field, off the field. He said, that's like my dad. I think there's a lot of players who feel that way about David Ortiz from the Dominican. And, you're seeing that growth in his game. This is the player they expected him to be. Really, they signed that kid. He was, I remember Rene Gallo, the scout who signed him, once told me that he first saw him, he looked like a sick giraffe. He's this real tall, skinny kid, no meat on him whatsoever. So he's really had to grow into his body in his time in professional ball and really just get a comfort level here where he came up to the big leagues and so much of was expected of him right away, which is really not fair. But, this season we're starting to see what all the fuss was about.
Anthony, we appreciate the knowledge again. Great job for us. We'll catch up with you again here before the game ends.
All right, guys. Sounds good.
All right, Anthony Castrovince out in Pittsburgh, our T-Mobile Greater coverage reporter. Polanco actually made his big league debut against the Cubs at PNC Park. 1 for 5 in that game. It was on the 10th of June in 2014.
And we've been brainstorming ways to get Starling Marte on the All-Star team.
Yeah.
I don't know what the details are, but Yoenis Cespedes has left the game tonight with an injury in the Mets game.
Mm-hmm.
And so there is a possible way to get Starling Marte or even Ryan Braun onto the All-Star team if Yoenis Cespedes can't make it out there.
Statistically, it'd be Marte.
Yeah.
Right? If we're going to do
Absolutely.
The StatCast is going to be pretty definitive. Starling Marte and his all-around game. But look, Ryan Braun's having another really good season. He's played himself back to being Ryan Braun.
Yeah.
And it took a couple of years after the suspension and all the injuries. So he's, again, it's any guy on that final vote list could have so easily been on that All-Star team. And Gregory Polanco, too.
Gregory Polanco, too, or Christian Yelich. Charlie Blackmon. There's so many good outfielders, and the fact that they had Odubel Herrera's having a good season, but they had to have a Philly. Adam Duvall's having a good season. They had to have a Red. There's just no way to get all of the deserving players onto the team.
Let's take a look real quick here in StatCast at the Addison Russell ground ball mishandled by David Freese, but certainly getting down the line.
Yeah, 19.1 seconds. You can see he kind of turns his head back. You wonder maybe a little bit. It's not seconds. Miles per hour. Excuse me. He kind of kept the head down the entire way. Maybe he tops 20. It's hard to get to, and that really shows very good speed once you can.
19 seconds would be me on my
yeah, right.
media front office softball game.
Me on my bicycle going from home plate to first. 13-foot lead for Russell. And Hayward takes outside.
Russell hasn't been great offensively. We talked about that the last time we did a game. He's a young player. He expands his zone. He strikes out a lot, but he does what he did right there. He'll give you some speed, and he'll give you defense.
Yeah.
And there's great value in that.
Yeah, he's a very good defensive shortstop. And we talk about how he's not necessarily doing great at the bat. He's going to end up with like 18 home runs this year, maybe 20 home runs. And I think that says less about him and more about just the unbelievable crop of other shortstops that have come up. Seager and Story and Lindor and Bogarts and Correa and all these guys. It's harder to stand out just because this is a near historic crop of shortstops coming up at the same time. Russell has given the Cubs exactly what they need. Good defense, acceptable offense with the potential for more.
And it's kind of interesting to watch how both of these teams have kind of reinvented themselves a little bit. Obviously, the Cubs stripped it down and went through the draft and development way of going through a rebuild. And that'll get into left field as Hayward has his second hit of the game. Continue that thought here in just a second, but now Hayward 2 for 3 in the game. It goes the other way.
Perfectly placed ball. That's just the kind of thing where it's, what can you do? You're the pitcher. You basically got the job done, but he just put it in the exact spot where it's going to get through.
And how long can Francisco Liriano live like this? He's had a runner in scoring position in every inning.
The answer is not very long.
96 pitches. They can maybe get him through this inning, if even. Now this might be it right here, so forget that.
So Liriano will exit. And you get a nice little round of applause there. 3-1 lead he leaves with, but with the tying runs on base here in the 6th inning.
That counts as a big step forward for him because he had not been giving them a lot of innings, and to get him into the 6th was big.
In-game StatCast, no score in Milwaukee, the Cardinals and the Brewers until Chris Carter. Solo home run off of Michael Wacha. Carter's 21st. Brewers a 1-0 lead. They still lead by that score. Reds taking on the Marlins. Score tied at 1 in the 4th. Dietrich slapping an RBI single to the left off Dan Straley to give the Marlins a 3-1 lead. They still lead by that score. Nationals are in Queens taking on the Mets. No score, 2nd inning. So Clint Robinson takes Noah Syndergaard deep for his 5th home run of the year. Puts the Nationals up 3-0, and they also still lead by that same score. Detroit at Toronto. No score. Tigers, Blue Jays in the 5th. Cameron Maybin. Hard ground ball toward third base. Bouncing off the bag. Josh Thompson make the bare hand play and gets the out at first base. Score still 0-0. And the Yankees and the Indians. Yankees in Cleveland down 4-0. Look at this blast by Mac Napoli. A 2-run shot. That off of Chad Green to put the Indians up 6-0. He almost hit the drummer. Estimated 460 feet. 4th home run of the game. And currently the Indians are leading 8-0 in that one. That was a blast.
That was an absolute bomb.
Oh, man.
We're about to see Juan Nicasio here. Do you guys remember spring training where Juan Nicasio signs with the Pirates and just starts blowing everybody away, and they're thinking, well, he wasn't going to be a starter. We have to make him a starter. Didn't really work out as a starter. Now he's back in the bullpen. Still throws really, really hard. He averages almost 94 miles an hour on his fastball, but even out of the bullpen, he's having a real hard time hitting the plate. This is actually a pretty good Pirates bullpen. They just had a streak of 34 in the 3rd consecutive scoreless innings, which is amazing. Juan Nicasio really needs to throw strikes here because you got men on base, can't let this game get away from them.
Well, he certainly did the other day. He had a perfect inning and very economical as far as the pitches were concerned as well. 9.
Yeah, the immaculate inning, which you do not see very often.
And against a pretty good hitting Cardinals team. And again, this was a big series. This was part of the winning streak that had reached 7 games for Pittsburgh. And you look at some of the pitching metrics there. StatCast powered by Amazon Web Services. And now Nicasio will come out of the bullpen here to work for the Cubs with 2 on. And nobody out here in inning number 6. They'll take over for Francisco Liriano. And a velocity at about 87 miles an hour there.
It was the first immaculate inning since May of last season. Santiago Casilla, another guy who just comes at you pretty hard.
So here's Javier Baez swinging first ball. And it's going to be 2.
Well, that'll do.
It is.
Welcome to the game, Nicasio.
So 6-4-3 double play. Puts a man in third now with 2 outs. And Montero at the plate. This one rolled out to Rodriguez, served up on a silver platter.
Yeah, I like Baez being aggressive there. You know, I think he was expecting a first pitch fastball, didn't get it. He got the slider, about 85 miles an hour. And I think, you know, it dove and he kind of topped it right to shortstop. I like the approach. Obviously, it didn't work out too well for him.
So now Montero, 0 for 1 officially, hit by a pitch and a ground out. Fouls that back to the screen.
The best Clint Hurdle quote I heard about Nicasio, as you talked about switching from a starter to a reliever, where you can just go out and air it out. Fastball, slider, here you go. Hurdle said he's letting it eat.
I like that. That's good.
He's great. He's got some of the best little quotes.
Yeah, when he signed with the Pirates, he just seemed the perfect Ray Searage reclamation project, right? Big arm, obviously. Never really made it work as a starter with Colorado. Had his moments as a reliever with the Dodgers last year, but never really made that next step. They actually let him go. I think they could have still had him under contract for this year. And you see him go to Pittsburgh, and you're like, well, of course. Ray Searage, of course, looked amazing in spring training, as we saw. But I don't think anybody really thought he was going to be able to keep that up.
It's interesting you bring that back up because I wanted to make the point about the way that both of these teams have gone about making themselves over. And there was a book written about the Pirates a couple of years ago called The Big Data Book that talked about the transition from traditional scouting to a lot of the numbers and things of that nature. But it also dealt with the types of pitches guys were throwing and how often they were throwing it, which goes into now our pitch percentages that we can bring you. And Ray Searage and his staff kind of worked on it and said, listen, we want our pitchers to be throwing what they're throwing best, and we want them to throw that more often. And it turned A.J. Burnett around a little bit. It turned Charlie Morton around before he got hurt again. And it's just kind of an incredible way of redoing things, especially with as we pointed out, you guys were asking Anthony Castermans about the fact that Clint Hurdle is known as an old school type of manager, and then kind of revising his way of doing things.
Yeah, it's easier, I think, to drop your worst pitch when you're not expected to turn around a lineup 3 times.
Good point.
You don't need to show as much variety, and I think the Pirates certainly do that. I think their bullpen is one of the most heavily used in baseball this year, and it's actually been pretty good, but I think that's a big reason why.
Just on Clint Hurdle, I mean, I give him credit for change. This is, you're right, old school baseball.
Yeah.
You line up the big league managers in terms of like grizzled quotient, you know. Clint Hurdle would be very near the top of the list, and you give him credit for adapting to the new information that's available, and not just, you know, looking at it, but putting people in place that can implement that in a way to make people better. And Pittsburgh has turned itself into a place where pitchers want to go.
And this game might be tied very quickly, and it is. Miguel Montero to right field, a homer. And it's 3-3 here in the 6th.
Well, so much for the Pirates bullpen having a 34. I mean, that ended a couple of days ago, but man, that was a pitch. You know, it was a slider, right? It was a slider, a little low, but basically down the middle. 86-mile-an-hour slider, didn't move that much. You're going to see it right here. There's just not that much to that pitch. And you can see right off the bat, Montero knew.
It's what we talked about. You keep putting guys on base, you keep putting runners in scoring position, and eventually it's going to lead to runs. The Cubs are 0 for 8 with runners in scoring position before that. 2 out, big 2 out home.
5th of the year for Montero. And again, just over that Roberto Clemente wall out in right field, 21 feet high. Sneaking into the first couple of rows.
A 374 on that home run, which is not all that far as home runs go. The 2 of the home runs we've seen tonight have been really just squeaking over the wall there.
And Arrieta will swing and miss to end the inning. But damage done. The 2 out, 2-run, game-tying home run off the bat of Cubs catcher Miguel Montero. Well, the Cubs get the 2 runs on 2 hits and a big error. Well, winds up coming home to score here against the Pirates. So we are all knotted up now. Here we go to the bottom of inning number 6. Back here in our studios in New York, Andy Mazer, Adam McCalvey, Mike Petriello here with you, kind of breaking this one down. And as you look at this one, the Cubs had so many opportunities early in this game, they could not get a run to score. A couple of home runs now off of Jake Arrieta makes the score 3-1. Hayward with the big triple, and now the big home run by Miguel Montero.
Yeah, it's a guy who hasn't been slugging this season, Hayward, hitting the triple that produces the first run. And then a guy who hasn't been hitting really at all, Montero, hitting the tying homer. So offense comes in weird places sometimes, and the Cubs will take it, given what's happened to them over the last couple of weeks.
Yeah, it's funny. Liriano was kind of living on the edge. I don't think he had a clean inning the entire night, but he managed to skate through and skate through and skate through, and then in comes their bullpen and blows it right away for him. So maybe they just needed to get rid of Liriano. He's such a difficult guy to hit because, he's always got that movement. He's not going to throw it in the zone for you.
All right, let's get the numbers on the Miguel Montero home run in StatCast, powered by Amazon Web Services. Back to PNC Park for this replay using StatCast.
At 374, I mean, listen, you asked earlier what's the lowest exit velocity for a home run. I think we actually looked it up, 87 miles an hour by Troy Tulowitzki. This one's 93, which is not that hard as far as home runs go, and that's why it just squeaked over. I think his home run and David Freese's home run, product of this particular ballpark, would not have been out of most parks. Tie game, though, all that matters for the Cubs.
So new life here for Jake Arrieta. As Montero throwing that ball down to second base as we get ready now for the bottom half of the 6th inning. And Starling Marte will lead it off here for Pittsburgh. We talk about the domination of one team over another in a certain season. And in the 9 games that the 2 teams have played here this year between the Cubs and the Pirates, Cubs are 8-1. They've outscored the Pirates 58-21 in those 9 games.
Is that bad? That seems bad.
Very bad. I think even the metrics will show you that that's bad.
Yeah, there's no talking around that. That's real bad.
And of course, Arrieta has had a lot to do with that. As here is Marte. Single, stolen base, run scored.
You look at the outfielders on either side of McCutchen, and you had Polanco, who made a huge step forward this year. Marte kind of was a productive player from the day he set foot in the big leagues, and he's really settled into this comfortable, consistent player. 290, 350, 450, 15 homers, great defense, great throwing arm, really good on the bases. That is a solidly above average 3 to 4 to win player every single year, and it's not a superstar. It's pretty close.
Do you like the Bill James power speed number? He's ninth in the big leagues. It's like the Ricky Henderson stat.
That's not one I've heard in a while, actually. I will explain to the people if they don't know what that one means.
Well, it is the harmonic mean of home runs and stolen bases. And I saw it's basically home runs plus stolen bases divided by home runs times stolen bases or some combination of that. But it's basically the best mix of power and speed. So number 1 in the big leagues, Will Myers and Melvin Upton, a couple of Padres, which really surprised me.
That is it's fascinating. Will Myers on that list.
Yeah. So Marte comes in 9th, 9.7. That wasn't a stat I'd heard very much.
So a play there by Javier Baez at third base to retire Marte for out number 1.
And Marte and Polanco, and even the 4th outfielder, Matt Joyce, have been so good. Even though the McCutchen really hasn't been this year, the Pirates still have one of the best outfields in baseball, which is saying a lot when your supposed superstar's been struggling.
And to kind of further illustrate that point, you look at some of the teams that are above them, and weighted runs created plus, you know, they're there. I mean, they're doing a nice job.
Yeah, they're right up there. It's actually a very similar issue with Miami, where Stanton, up until the last week, has been struggling, but Ozuna and Ichiro and Christian Yelich have all been fantastic.
Pirates 4th in the league there this season in that number among the outfielders. Nice play here by Russell on a couple of ground balls here, and Jake Arrieta looking for his third 1-2-3 inning of the game.
And you feel him settling in, right? He had that 8-pitch inning in the 4th with a couple of strikeouts, and he gave up 2 singles in the 5th, but got out of it in singles. And you feel him now settling into this groove. It really feels like a new game. And 72 pitches isn't bad in the 6th.
Pretty economical.
Well, that's good. They're going to need length from him, because this game is guaranteed to go about 17 innings tonight.
Well, Ashley set us down.
I know. She knocked on wood. I heard it.
She sent us down the path. Good look here, high atop PNC Park from our T-Mobile Greater Coverage Cam, giving you some different angles to look at. And this beautiful ballpark and a nice game between these two National League Central rivals. Boy, where was that one?
You know, Montero wanted that real bad. And for all of his offensive struggles, he really is a very, very good pitch framer. If you look back to last year, Baseball Prospectus had him as the 4th best pitch framer in baseball. 16 runs above average, the top couple, Grandal, Cervelli, and Tyler Flowers, and then Montero. And that's a really important skill to have.
And that's why the Pirates went out to get Cervelli.
That's exactly right. Yeah, and then their backup, Chris Stewart, who's also very good, is a guy known for that as well.
So 1-2-3 go the Pirates here in the 6th inning. We've got a 3-3 ball game here after 6 innings in Pittsburgh. Let's take a look now at the All-Stars on the Chicago Cubs. There's 7 in total.
Swing and a miss, strike 3, back-to-back Ks to start it for Arrieta.
1 out away from making history here at the Great American Ballpark. A fly ball, shallow right, playable. Coming in is Hayward, no-hitter for Arrieta. Jake Arrieta pitches a no-hitter. Chris Bryant, a towering drive into the bullpen area. Long gone for Bryant. Cubs have some breathing room.
What a show. What a show. How about a curtain call on the road? Go ahead.
The 3-1 to Fowler is hit a bunch out to right field. If it stays fair, it's trouble. And that one is gone. Solo shot by Dexter Fowler makes it a little more interesting.
Left-hander John Lester. Man, he was good last time. He's been good all year.
1-2. And he swung at a pitch that bounced in front of home plate to end the inning. Here it comes, swing and a miss, and the inning is over.
Oh, this is good theater. This is good stuff, man.
Pitch on the way to Anthony. Swung on, hit in the air, deep right field, way up into the seats for Anthony Rizzo.
Driven out into deep left center. He has hit 2 today.
And a huge swing of the bat here in the top half of the 6th. Cubs fans rejoice.
The red-hot Ben Zobrist will lead it off. And that one muscled into center for a base hit. He locked in.
Oh, my goodness.
Say yes.
Making it look easy.
Well, I mentioned what a big series this is for the Pirates. They've been flip-flopping back and forth with the Cardinals for second place behind the Cubs. And there's, you know, what seemed like an impossible feat about a month ago. Not so impossible anymore for these guys.
No, the Pirates have won 7 of 8. They'd won 7 in a row before Adam Wainwright beat them yesterday. That lead, it used to be 14 games behind the Cubs. That's gone to 8.5, and now you play 3 games this weekend in your home ballpark. And that's why I asked Anthony Castrovince about, you know, sort of changing the vibe in that city and the vibe in that club. I said, it doesn't look so insurmountable.
I'm going to be the guy who says it's impossible. It's completely impossible. But you're right. You know how much that's changed the last time you were here with us? I think we started talking about how it was interesting. The Pirates and the Brewers were like a game and a half apart at that point. This is 3 weeks ago or so. And yeah, you're absolutely right. The Pirates have really made it into a race. Still in 3rd place, though. We can't discount the Cardinals just yet. Although I think if Matt Carpenter is out for a while, he might be the best player in the National League this year. That's really going to hurt them.
I'm looking from the perspective inside that clubhouse too. I mean, you need something to play for, and to see this division and the way it's gone the last, 10 years, where it is neck and neck. It seems every year, multiple postseason teams coming out of this division. It feels like every year. To see the Cubs run away with it was so eye-popping. And I think it was sort of eye-popping to the people in the seats at PNC Park as well. So this looks a little bit nicer. If they shave another game off that coming out of this weekend, it gives you at least some hope going into the second half.
Yeah,
I'll say there's hope.
And then you can stop talking about, are the Pirates going to be sellers? Because I don't think they will be. Unless they completely fall apart. But I think they're going to be in this. They're going to try to get that wild card spot for the 17th year in a row.
So Neftali Feliz now into the game for Pittsburgh, third pitcher of the day.
Well, I was going to say, I still will talk about it because I'm a beat writer of a Major League Baseball team, and that's what we do in July. That's all we talk
That's
about.
Right, I know.
Forget the baseball. Let's talk about trades.
Yeah, we need to find out if they're buyers or sellers. Big shift on here for Zobrist, who's been on a couple of times. So Neftali Feliz coming out of the bullpen. A lot of four-seam fastballs.
Yeah, Neftali Feliz is very similar to Nicasio in the sense. So here's a guy that Ray Searage can do something with. Four-seam fastballs and the slider, throws really, really hard, averaging 96 miles an hour on the fastball this year. Really, his career kind of went off track. He was a good closer for Texas. They tried to make him a starter for a minute, hurt his arm. I think he was with Detroit for a little while last year. And now here he is. He's actually having a really good season. He's got the lowest ERA he's had in a couple of years. Career low walk rate, about half what it was when his career was falling apart with Texas. And his strikeouts, last couple of years, 18%, 19%, almost 29% this year.
And he's hot. 9 straight scoreless appearances going into this one.
Misses there. It's 2-2 on Zobrist. It's amazing how many of those reclamation projects, so to speak, there are around Big League Baseball. When, it used to be before specialization, and you took your 10 best pitchers, whether they, the guys that couldn't be starters were guys in the bullpen. But now you see something in some of these pitchers that they have 2 really good pitches that you can really utilize out of the bullpen. That's called foul. Hug the line.
I think part of what's happened, too, is that bullpens have grown. It's so common now for teams to carry 13 pitchers, 8-man bullpen for long stretches of time, and it shortens all of those individual outings. So you can get a guy in, we've seen 2 now, fastball slider. Get in, throw really as hard as you can for a short burst of time, and you have enough guys that you can cover a lot of innings. The Pirates came in tonight 4th most bullpen innings in baseball, but they've got enough depth and they've got enough velocity that they can just come in and cover that.
Yeah, and people want to talk about why is offense down, or maybe less so this year with the home runs, but over the last 5 or 10 years, this is why. Because you don't have guys going through the lineups 3rd and 4th time as they're getting tired. You've got these guys coming in for 15 pitches, throwing as hard as they can, not having to throw maybe their less impressive 3rd or 4th pitch. It's really hard to hit. You don't see, you never used to see 94-mile-an-hour sliders.
Right.
I don't know anybody hits anything.
90-mile-an-hour changeups.
Yeah, it's insane.
Zobrist not exactly thrilled with this Alfonso Marquez strike 3 call.
98.
And Ben saying, I know that you know that I know that that ball was outside. Just keep it in mind for next time. And here's Bryant. He's been on a couple of times, a double, walk, and a fly out. Miguel Montero's 2-out, 2-run homer in the 6th has this game tied at 3.
Yeah, Feliz has been throwing really hard tonight. 97.8 we just saw, and a pretty high spin rate, 2,500, 2,600. Average spin rate on a 4-seam fastball is 22, 25 or so. So that's a really good spin rate. It means it's staying up longer, and he's throwing it really hard. So when it's not going where you think it's supposed to go, and it's coming in really hard, that's really difficult to hit.
And there's our definition of spin rate for you. Spin of the ball at the point of the release from the pitcher's hand. There's a swing and a miss.
So you can drop that hammer of a slider in when you think you're going to get a 98-mile-an-hour fastball, and all of a sudden you understand why that's so difficult to hit.
Yeah, you got to gear up for. They always tell you, sit fastball and adjust to everything else, and that's easier said than done, obviously. Swing and a miss.
Slider, slider, slider. I don't think you saw a fastball that entire at bat. Just all sliders, and you can never get his bat speed right there. Nice.
Little Louis Tiant move there.
Yeah.
Johnny Cueto.
Yeah, Johnny Cueto. Let's take a look at the Ben Zobrist strikeout using StatCast, powered by Amazon Web Services.
So extension is how far in front of the mound he gets, and actually that's kind of short. So that's why the perceived velocity, which is what the hitter sees it as, is lower than it came out of his hand.
Again, as you said, the definition pops up on your screen. And a check swing by Anthony Rizzo. 1 ball, no strikes. Rizzo with a career best WAR last year. 6.2 wins above replacement. It's pretty good. And Feliz saying, just like Miguel Montero was complaining that how is that not a strike? I mean, that dotted the outside corner. Or the inside corner, excuse me.
Clint Hurdle looks thrilled.
There's your Grizzle factor.
Grizzle. The reddest face in baseball.
That's going to be StatCast next year, is measuring Grizzle factor.
Grizzle.
I will definitely help you with that.
Okay, that's at the knees and over the plate.
Maybe a little low, but yeah, I kind of agree with you there.
And the only thing that a player and a pitcher and a catcher and an umpire and a manager will ask is that a strike in the first inning is a strike in the 7th inning.
Just consistency.
And yeah, they're human. They miss. You know, you're going to miss one. You get the one that's a little bit off the plate to make up for that.
99 on that one.
2-1 now the count. Tally Feliz. Working Anthony Rizzo here with 2 outs. Base is empty. And that's low. Let's take a look at the Chris Bryant strikeout again using StatCast, powered by Amazon Web Services. Pretty much consistent with the extension.
Yeah, it's a little slightly below average, not by too much. We've seen some guys get up to 7 feet, which is actually a big deal. It shaves a lot off the time going to the plate.
Big shift on for Rizzo.
99 up with a high spin rate. That is almost unhittable. I mean, it basically is unhittable. You have to lay off. That's all you can do with it.
It is, because if you make contact, even Anthony Rizzo, like one of the best hitters in baseball, if you hit that, you're hitting it in the air somewhere.
Yeah, it's a pop out, which is basically a strikeout. I love when guys go high with the high fastball, because for so many years they were taught, stay down, keep it down, get ground balls. And
that one
went
is
down.
drilled into deep right center, and that is gone. Anthony Rizzo crushes that one to right center. I'll be very interested to see the exit velocity on that one. And Rizzo unties it. 103.
103, huh? 421 feet. So we talked about up, up, up. That was a four-seamer, 98 miles an hour, which is great, but it wasn't up, wasn't on the black. It was up basically right down the middle, slightly low, and you got a guy like Anthony Rizzo. He eats that kind of stuff for breakfast.
So now a 4-3 Cubs lead. This one coming at you. Man, that's some strength.
Some Cubs fans in the house there tonight, too.
Cubs fans travel extremely well, don't they?
Yes, they do.
I guess you must say you're not far away from Chicago and Milwaukee. You must see a lot of blue and red, huh?
Oh, the early years of Miller Park, when the Brewers were really down and the Cubs were in there, Mark Pryor, Kerry Wood era, it was Wrigley Field North, and it was 75% Cubs fans.
Yeah. This had a sweet sound off the bat too.
No doubt about that one. And listen, it wasn't a very well-placed ball, but it was still 98 miles an hour, and that is not easy to hit. And look at that, perfect launch angle, over 100 miles an hour. That was not, I don't want to say the other ones were cheapy because it's not really fair, but there's no doubt about that.
Yeah. Only first home run of the year for Rizzo.
I don't want to interrupt our game to talk about other games, but Noah Syndergaard out of the game too.
Oh.
After talking to trainers, velocity down 3 or 4 miles an hour.
Yeah,
So-
Bartolo Colon needs to go to the All-Star game, doff his cap on the
sit
foul
down.
line, and sit down.
The Mets might just want to say, you know what, we're going to the beach.
Yeah.
Certainly hope that's nothing serious. That happened to Jason Hamill last night in the game against the Braves, where he was down about 3 or 4 miles an hour in one inning, and they found out he had cramps in his hand. They had to take him out of the game.
When it's a guy you know already has a bone spur.
Yeah.
And
No, I hear you.
Syndergaard's an interesting guy. A lot of pitchers won't even talk about the prospect of an elbow injury. It's like a totally taboo subject. And Syndergaard has actually talked about all the steps he's taken to prepare himself, the workouts, the pre- and post-game routine, in order to specifically avoid, the Matt Harvey type elbow injury. And you hope it's just nothing, maybe a bone spur moved in the wrong place.
My professional opinion is it's not possible for someone to throw that hard for that long and stay healthy. The only way Aroldis Chapman can do it, but he only throws an inning at a time every couple days. As a starting pitcher, throwing 100+ pitches, I don't even think it's possible to keep that up.
Full count here on Contreras. And he lost him, ball 4. So another little 2-out rally here. 2 outs when Montero hit the home run in the 6th to tie it. And 2 outs here in the 7th when Rizzo unties it. And the inning continues for Addison Russell.
And notable up over 20 pitches now, I think, for a former closer. Phillies, anytime a guy gets over 20 as a reliever, I think you open your eyes a little bit. The stuff is definitely diminished at that point.
Yeah, and I think you're absolutely right. And it's not just about velocity, because he did hit 99 in that at bat, but it's about placement, it's about movement, it's about really putting it where you want to put it. I know the first place people want to look at is the radar gun, and that's a great place to start, but that's not the only thing that being tired can affect your game.
And we talked about all the walks and the hit batsmen by Liriano early in this game, and now the bullpen. It's a total of 4 walks and 2 hit batters, and of those 6 base runners, none have scored.
That feels unsustainable.
Right? So I say that after the 2-out walk here by Phillies, and Addison Russell to the plate. And they always come out with those stats. Leadoff walk score 97%. You know. But you're right. I mean, Liriano was walking a fine line there, and Cubs just could not get that big hit when they needed it. But now they've gotten a couple here with 2 outs in the last couple of innings. The lead 4-3. Now a little soft toss over to first.
And here's the problem again the Pirates have had in the Liriano games is they're eating up all these reliever innings. It's the 10th time in 17 starts he hasn't completed 6 innings. And this is supposed to be one of the guys who's at the top of your rotation, and that's even more so with a Garrett Cole out right now. You need innings and good innings from your top guys, and Liriano has just been unable. I think getting into the 6th against the Cubs is good. He walked off the mound, and the way he had dodged trouble, it felt like the sort of, pat him on the backside type of an outing. But now the result is they're going to have to eat up all these innings.
Yeah, the Pirates coming into the game, 298 bullpen innings. I think the 4th most in baseball. And it's a good bullpen. You want to rely on them, but you also have to worry about blowing them out before the end of the season.
So nice outing, 5 innings.
You would probably take 3 walks in 5 innings for Liriano,
yeah.
but it really wasn't, right? Because he hit 2 guys.
Yep.
So 5 free passes in 5 innings, and that goes right back to the Liriano problem he's had all year.
And all the extra pitches from the deep counts, 96 total in 5 innings, which is kind of high.
He's a guy searching for positives right now. He beat the A's in his last start with 5 innings, and everybody talked after that game of, what a good outing and a big step forward. It was a 5-inning win. It's not the sort of thing you usually, for a Francisco Liriano, a guy who has a no-hitter on his resume, and again is supposed to be one of the top of the rotation guys for expected to be a good pitching team. That's not the sort of outing that you normally would elicit that kind of praise. But look, they're searching. When you're down, you got to search for things to feel good about. And I do think he'll walk out of this one feeling like he gave him a chance to win. And again, we talked about the velocity for Arrieta. Liriano was the same. He threw really hard.
Yeah. No.
So, okay, that's something to build on.
Yeah, a warm night, we're in July, and that was really impressive from both sides. And the Pirates' bullpen is really what gave this game away, assuming they don't come back and win here. And that's really been a strength of their team for a while.
MLB Plus, powered by Amazon Web Services from PNC Park in Pittsburgh. Swing and a miss. And that will end the inning. He winds up striking out the side. But in between a home run by Anthony Rizzo and a walk to Wilson Contreras, but the big blow again, the home run by Anthony Rizzo, a stretch time at PNC. As we head to the bottom of the 7th inning with now the Cubs in front by the score of 4-3. Welcome back to our New York studio. Andy Mazer, Adam McCalvey, and Mike Petriello with you here in the studio. And we'll bring in Ashley Chavez, our social media private.
Hey, Andy, how's it going?
Going well. What do you got for us?
Well, as you can imagine, a lot of people were excited when the Cubs tied it up, a lot of Cubs fans. But, of course, I can't wait to dive in to see what they're saying about this guy's last home run to take the lead. But anyways, let's get back to Miguel Montero. Miggity Mount tweets, shout out from Miggity Mount to Miggy Mont 26 on that bomb, 3 for 3. I say shout out to Mike for having a great Twitter handle on that one.
I'm just happy you had to say Miggity Mout twice.
I was going to say, shout out to you for being able to say that.
I'm really happy that I did it. Nervous about that one for the second. Dave tweets, what are the chances of the Bucks catching the Cubs during the second half? I'll let anyone take that one.
Well, 0%, right?
0%?
I think the Fangraphs odds have them at 1%,
Wow.
right? I feel like you might think higher.
No, I think I'm not going to go against the numbers. I mean, but it's slim. Yeah, it's slim. And it's slim because the Cubs are as down as they can be right now. And the Pirates have shaved off a bunch of games, and it's 8.5 games.
Right, exactly right.
This is why getting off to a good start is important.
That's true. Next on with another great Twitter handle, Michael Strand, who is at I'm Stranded, tweets, shouldn't pitch velocity be considered when looking at exit velocity, aka exit velocity generated?
So I think that's a really good question. And the answer is no, because really you're looking at exit velocity. All that matters is how hard is the ball going when you hit it. It could be on a tee, and you could still measure how hard the ball is going when you hit it. There's been studies that have said that pitch velocity, the hitter kind of generates about 85% of the velocity of the bat. It's really not hard in, hard out, which was kind of the myth for years. But, he says, AKA exit velocity generated. We do look at generated velocity, which is kind of a combination of all those things. So that's a separate stat, and you can kind of see how much the hitter actually took what the pitcher threw. But as far as exit velocity goes, all that matters is power right off the bat.
Ashley, thank you very much for keeping an eye on things there in the social media realm. It's a big thing for us here to make sure that you're happy and satisfied with getting your questions answered. Hashtag MLB Plus. Powered by Amazon Web Services. Arrieta now pitching into the 7th. And this is big, too, because in his previous 3 starts, he had not reached the 6th inning. He hadn't gotten out of the 6th inning.
Yeah, and we had given that stat early. 3 earned runs for 3 straight games. First time in his Cubs career he had done that. The game has totally changed, I think. And again, it was that 8-pitch, 4th inning with 2 strikeouts and the ground out. That really is what snapped it in for Arrieta.
Well, after this hitter, it'll be Josh Bell. He is in the on-deck circle.
Welcome to the big leagues, kid. Here's Jake Arrieta.
Yeah, good luck with that. See how it works out for you. This is Adam Frazier actually at the plate right now, pinch hitting for Kratz.
Yeah, Pirates have a 6-man bench tonight. They might as well take use of it.
Frazier's been a good little spark plug for them, too. I mean, Bell is going to get the hype tonight and probably get a big ovation when he comes to the plate. But Clint Hurdle calls him a backyard ball player. One of those guys who squeezes the most out of the God-given ability.
Yeah, he can play second, short, all 3 outfield positions. In the minor leagues, he's really good at making contact. Just about no power. 3 homers and over 1,500 plate appearances. That's not his game. But I think we've seen a lot of guys who make contact. You play a lot of spots. That's a useful guy.
Mississippi State guy, drafted in the 6th round, that is, back in 2013. Pick number 179 overall by the Pirates. And one of several to make his major league debut this season for the Pittsburgh Pirates. Arrieta's 2-2. Right down the middle for a ball.
Inside. It's a little inside.
Are you kidding me?
It was borderline.
Are you kidding me?
Montero wanted that real bad.
There's been 3 pitches, 2 for Arrieta and 1 for Phillies that have been strikes.
Yeah, I actually look at the first ball on that at bat. I think was even more questionable.
Yeah,
so.
okay. I get a little frustrated. Sorry about that. And there's a ball 4.
That's how you pitch coming up.
So lead off walk. Stop it. So here comes Josh Bell. We'll talk about crazy power that this young man has. We go back to the Futures game and look at this home run in StatCast. That's at Great American Ballpark. Look at that big leg lift. 109 miles an hour off the bat.
Yeah, it's fun to get these guys in the Futures game, which we're going to do this upcoming weekend because we actually get some data on them. And you can see that he's really had some power, but he seems like he's grown into the power. When he came up, they expected it. Kind of took a couple of years for it to progress in the minors, and we've started to really see it this year. Really interested to see what he can do against Jake Arrieta.
Yeah, big league debut.
Or is he going to get lucky here?
Chris Bosio, the pitching coach, is out. More, I think, for a game plan kind of a situation here with a new batter at the plate.
Yeah, parts of 5 seasons in the minors, 377 on base, 465 slugging, which is pretty good. But this year in AAA, 407 on base, 535 slugging. He really has upped his game this year.
And had 13 home runs in Indianapolis, 43 minor league home runs.
And the question, he's an outfielder who converted to first base last season. The question was, is he going to hit for enough power to be a really good first baseman? And this season, he's making a case.
Yeah, he's still got to prove he's not a DH. He can really handle the outfield. So far, first base has been he's inexperienced, we'll say that. And I think that's why you're mostly going to see him as a pinch hitter the next couple of days before he heads back down when they need another starting pitcher. But the bat is something special, and it remains to be seen if that alone can carry him.
And welcome to the big leagues.
Yeah, that'll do.
Frazier to third, tying run, 90 feet away from home plate with nobody out, and Bell is pumped.
First pitch of his big league career from Jake Arrieta in a big game for both teams. That's a pretty neat moment for him. Hopefully they just rolled that baseball into the dugout.
And of course they'll do the thing that they always do. They'll throw another ball into the stands and make him think that they gave away his first hit. First, it's got to get authenticated.
Obviously.
93 miles an hour off the bat, off of one of the best pitchers on the planet.
Is that a slider? I didn't notice. I'm sorry to put you on the spot there.
Curveball.
Curveball.
Curveball, okay.
Curveball down and away, probably a good curveball.
Yeah, I think just caught too much of the plate there.
Taking a look at it here.
That's a pretty swing, huh? That's really a left-handed swing.
You know, the switch hitter, they say the swing and the left-handed is probably the more natural side, but in the minors this year, he was good. His OPS 900 against lefties and righties.
Want to know the count.
So, a question for you guys.
Yeah.
Would you put Matt Joyce in here? Matt Joyce is a left-handed hitter who just he's got the biggest platoon split on the planet, basically. John Jaso has been struggling. I know he's got platoon splits of his own. Matt Joyce has been red hot. This is a huge point in the game here. Do you make the switch?
It's a tough call. I mean, especially if you're trying to get a guy going and you put him up in a situation where he can succeed.
I don't like it, lefty. Again, Jaso has been competent against right-handed pitching. I'd stay with him. I mean, that said, he's 1 for 26 against the Cubs this season.
Yeah, I'm not sure I have a strong opinion. I just thought it was interesting because Joyce has been really, really good. I guess that opens up the question of, you know, do you have to put Bell at first base then? And maybe that's a little uncertain. So there's that too.
Good point there. And the way the Cubs are playing the infield, it looks as though they're going to concede a run for a double play. With nobody out here. Two and one the count now on John Jaso. Down and try to golf that one into the seats.
Yeah, there's some movement on that pitch, you know, and that's really been the thing for Arrieta is getting the movement back. So it's been still inconsistent tonight, but we've seen it. We've seen flashes of it.
Jake's been very good in games with a lead. Usually when you give him the ball and he has a lead in the game, it's take it to the bank.
Yeah, 17 in a row. That's pretty good. But you're right, Andy. I mean, there's something in the scouting report that they have the infield back. This is a situation where a lot of teams are bringing it in.
And we are going to be tied. John Jaso says, Mike Petriello, put me at the plate. None of this Matt Joyce stuff. 4-4 game.
This may be Arrieta's worst start against the Pirates. And he's made about 13 of them, I think. I think this is the most amount of hits he's ever allowed to the Pirates. And so while we've seen some good flashes, we've seen some movement, we've seen good velocity, you know, the outcome just isn't there, and this is another 4-run game.
He's kind of going with the pitch, too. Serving that one out into the left. So here in the 7th, a new game, 4-4. And that may be it for Arrieta. And it is, in fact, night over for Jake Arrieta.
And to Mike's point, the previous high for hits in the start against the Pirates was 7.
And we are at 9. We're at 9.
And previous high for earned runs was 3. So on both counts, this is his worst start against the Pirates.
All right, guys, as we get near the All-Star break with Travis Wood coming in here for the Cubs, time to look at our StatCast All-Stars. We've got a number of categories for guys that have led these particular categories. How about home to home? Let's look at Jason Kipnis right here.
I'm too distracted by this because that was ruled a home run. He'll circle the bases. No error on that.
Maybe it didn't touch his glove. That could be the argument.
15.
Not Desmond Jennings' finest play of the year, but
15 seconds to go 360 feet, and more than that considering he has to do some rounding around the edges. That's pretty impressive. This is the longest home run of the season. A perfect launch angle, 108 miles an hour. Also, we looked into this. Humid day, it was in Texas. The wind was blowing out, so that all matters too. And that was an absolute shot by Mazzara.
How about the hardest hit home run of the year?
This is Carlos Gonzalez. It's also one of the lowest home runs of the year. That was a straight line, 14 degrees launch angle. I believe the lowest we have on record is 11 by Stanton, almost 118 miles an hour off the bat. So you can hit it that low when you hit it that hard.
And that one got into the pool out there in Arizona. How about the fastest pitch thrown so far this year?
I wonder who this will be.
I think it's Aroldis Chapman. And good on the hitter here for making contact. Almost 104 miles an hour. I know it was a pop-up, but even still.
And how about the infield throw here by Jonathan Villar?
Villar's got a good arm, and you see him all the time. And I love that this is against Billy Hamilton of all people. So you really needed to get that ball over there.
He has been a big bright spot, a 25-year-old getting to play every day for the first time in his career, and a really smart pickup for David Stearns.
And the strongest throw from the outfield, Aaron Hicks. A strike.
To get Danny Valencia, what was that, 105.5? Now, of course, he had a bit of a running start. I've always wanted to know what Aroldis Chapman could do with a running start. 110?
That'd be impressive.
You can see Hicks on top of this list here. This is what we call competitive throws. It's the way we try to get rid of just the lobs back to the infield after easy pop flies. Aaron Hicks, a couple of Twins, Miguel Sano probably not playing much outfield anymore, but Starling Marte, number 3 on that list in our game tonight, and that's one of the reasons he's such a valuable defensive outfielder.
All right, so the game on the bases here for the Pirates in the 7th inning. They have chased Jake Arrieta and the oft-used Travis Wood, who's even played left field in a game this year.
I think we're on our way to seeing that tonight, boys.
Don't you joke about that. We both have early flights.
Going somewhere?
No.
Oh, the All-Star game, that's right.
So Travis Wood, as you mentioned, is having a really good year. One of the reasons that you can be successful when you go from being a starting pitcher to a reliever, your velocity tends to tick up. You can dump your worst pitches. You also get put in better situations. Here he is facing a lefty. His platoon advantage, when he was a starter, is about 25% of the time, meaning he was facing about 75% righties. Now it's almost 50-50. And you can look a lot better when you're put in much more fortuitous situations. And you can see 4-seam fastball. The top 3 pitchers there are fastballs.
The counter argument that comes to my mind for this is now that he has become their lefty, is he's facing Gregory Polanco every night.
Well, there's that.
He's facing Joey Votto every night. And that is something for Travis Wood, at least, that's going to be an adjustment.
That's a very valid point. Oh, no. Oh, no.
Bell will score, and it's a 5-4 Pittsburgh lead. Wood going over to cover the bag. The throw from Rizzo was to the home plate side of the bag. And Wood just cannot handle the throw. Here's there.
Anthony Rizzo is such a good first baseman. He almost always puts it there. And when you see a play like that and you watch the replay in slow-mo, it's almost never his. A little behind the runner, a little behind the pitcher.
We talked about the Cubs just not being as tight in a lot of different areas. I don't think people talked enough about their defense. Obviously, the lineup's great. The rotation's been great. The defense was really stellar. Probably the best defense in baseball in the first part of the season. And you've seen more of that, too. You've seen more of just the little things that aren't there. That's really what Joe Maddon's got to work on. I think they're going to welcome the break. I'll put it that way.
Yeah, and it seems, I think we talked about this a little earlier, too. It seems like not just one facet has shut down. It's pretty much a team-wide thing.
Yeah, I really, outside of Wilson Contreras, the entire team has had their moments, and I think that's going to be it. And here comes, who's that, Carl Edwards?
It is Carl Edwards Jr. coming out of the bullpen. And Edwards gets a maximum velocity out of a very slight frame.
Yeah, not too much here. 4-seam and a changeup, and I think that's part of the reason he didn't really make it as a starter. As you said, he's a bit of a thin guy, but I do like it anytime a 48th round draft pick comes to the big leagues.
Yeah.
He's acquired in the Matt Garza deal, and has had some success. 10 strikeouts in 8 innings, and he can bring it. I mean, that fastball gets up to 96, 97. He's got closer potential. You know, he's still very inexperienced, I think.
Thing I like about him, single digit as a pitcher.
Oh, I love it. Hey, Stroman's another one, I think.
Stroman, you got Adam Ottavino.
Urias for the Dodgers. Love it.
Snell.
Blake Snell.
Blake Snell.
Yeah.
Number 4. There's 6 total, I want to say.
For many years, there was the one guy for the Blue Jays, Josh
Towers?
Yeah, right.
And Kyle Drabek actually wore number 4 when he was with the Blue Jays as well.
Yeah, Edwards, in addition to throwing 95 miles an hour, really high spin rate on the fastball. 2,600 RPMs. It's considerably above average. So when you can throw it really hard with high spin and you can locate it, good things tend to happen.
Swings and misses is the...
Yeah, it'll defy gravity if it spins a lot. So it'll stay up, and you'll either have the batter swing under it, which is great, or make poor contact on the bottom of the ball and pop it up, which is also great. Now, obviously, it's also about location. You put it right down the middle, it might not matter so much, but anything you can do to throw off the hitter's expectations is really what you want to do as a pitcher.
Well, before McCutchen comes in, let's take another look real quickly, slow-mo of the play at first base with Anthony Rizzo throwing to Travis Wood. Rizzo is charged with the error.
Yeah, and that's
it wasn't
because
perfect.
It's behind the pitcher, but still, that ball is there.
See how awkwardly Polanco went into the bag right there? Yeah, it looked like he was almost, if we can see another replay of that, he kind of looked like, yeah, he is actually coming out of the game now. And you know something's not right because Gregory Polanco, incredibly athletic guy, being pinch run for by Eric Fryer. That's not a sentence I thought I'd ever say.
So you're not changing speed for speed here?
No disrespect to Eric Fryer, but he's a 4th string catcher.
Just want to make sure I understood.
Polanco's been banged up. He had left leg discomfort in recent games, whatever that means. And then last night he fouled a pitch off his back knee, really nasty one, right on the outside of his knee.
It's interesting. So obviously they had already pinch hit for Kratz, so they're going to put Fryer in no matter. I guess it's just a way to conserve the extra player, because otherwise there's no reason he would be in as opposed to, say, Matt Joyce or Jordan Mercer.
So still nobody out, and a couple of runs in. And Jake Arrieta out of the game. The one man that Wood faced reaches on the error. So it's 1st and 3rd. Jaso's at 3rd, Fryer the pinch runner at 1st. And that will get another run in. Andrew McCutchen, for all you that wanted to trade him, is 3 for 4.
Take that, McCutchen.
Yeah, I'll tell you, we never showed it. I made a whole big exit velocity chart where he's been straight downhill, and we're not going to show it now.
He didn't crush that ball. I'm curious to see that one.
Well, let's see. I'm going to guess a 97 on that. I almost regret saying it. 103. All right, not too far off.
103. That's a good.
So that'll make it 6-4. And David Freese now coming up here against Edwards. Freese with a home run in the 2nd. This is something else that did not happen early in the year, no matter if it was Jake Arrieta pitching or anybody. Cubs did not give up leads late in games.
Yeah, poor Carl Edwards Jr. is the guy who came up for Dexter Fowler when Fowler went on the DL. So he's the guy who's been in this period of, Cubs badness, 5-13. Not that it's, I'm not pinning this on
maybe it is his fault. Maybe it is.
But he is just not, he has not been able to enjoy any of the greatness of the Cubs early. He's been here lately.
Can I talk Brady Bunch with you guys? Are you calling him the Oliver of the Cubs right now? The Jinx?
I don't know. I don't know how to answer that.
Yeah.
Just want to make sure I was understanding you. Big swing and a miss there.
Anything before Saved by the Bell, you're
I'm sorry.
We can call him the Screech. I'll go with that.
Oh, the Screech. Okay, I like that. Yeah, Oliver was the cousin that came in and was basically the jinx of the family. All bad things started to happen to the Bradys. Can't believe I got to explain that. I'm not that much older than you guys, am I? Come on. This could be 2. It won't be, though. David Freese beating it out. Fryer gets down to third on the fielder's choice. And a pretty quick turn. The ball was hit pretty slowly.
Yeah, that was the problem. Here's one where low exit velocity was a very good thing for the Pirates because that's the reason they send the continues.
Very close at first, but a correct call.
Yeah, 74 miles an hour off the bat, so you're absolutely right on that. Just didn't get to the shortstop quickly enough. Most earned runs allowed for Jake Arrieta, by the way, since August of 2014.
So Joe Madden calling out his defensive alignment. Once the king of shifts, he was the shift master general.
Yeah, we had our own Lindsey Berra ask him why not, and one of the reasons he said is because the National League just doesn't have as many of those slow-footed lefty sluggers like the David Ortiz, you know, the Mark Teixeira, that kind of type. He doesn't think it's as necessary. I also think it helps that he's just got a good defense and good pitching.
The pitching is the key to me. I think he's got one of the best starting pitching staffs in baseball, and guys like Arrieta, Lester, and they might not like the shift. And look, that sounds kind of silly that a pitcher would dictate that, and I think that happens a lot less than it did.
But it's interesting that you bring that up because I go back to that big data book about the Pirates, and one of the big things that they started to do in spring training, they would go and spray paint X's on the field where they wanted their fielders to stand. And A.J. Burnett turned around and looked back where the second baseman was playing and said, what are you kidding me? He said, there's no way that I'm going to be able to pitch like this. But they integrated the whole situation into him. He bought in, and the rest of the staff bought in.
Buying in is a big part because when the pitcher and the fielders are out of sync, like there's nothing that when you see a really extreme shift against a left-handed hitter, and then the pitcher's throwing low and outside.
Well, that's part of it too.
Yeah, I was when the Cubs were in town last week. I was talking to Chris Coughlin, who's an outfielder who's injured now, and he said he couldn't believe it when guys do that because he's a lefty. He's like, you throw me 95 on the outside corner, I'm never going to pull that. Like it's almost not possible for me to do it. Why are you then shifting me if you're not going to throw me inside stuff? And I get part of it is you don't want the hitter to know that there's going to be inside stuff. So there's the game within the game like that, but it just does not seem efficient.
So first and third here, one out. The second, and Russell able to get a hand on the bag.
With his bare hand.
And a force, but a run comes in. And it's now a bigger lead here for the Pirates at 7-4.
But you don't see that too often, do you? When he goes and tags it with his bare hand. It'd be interesting if he tried to tag the runner like that, because it would have been that.
So they get the force out, barely, and a run comes in.
His momentum carrying past the bag, and he had to go back. It was similar to what happened to Travis Wood at first base.
That's a good point. So Russell saves a lot of disaster now with 2 outs. And Josh Harrison is the batter, 0 for 3 in the baseball game. Up and in. So Jake Arrieta goes 6 innings in this one. Take a look at his final line with 88 pitches in the game, 60 of which were thrown for strikes, and 6 runs.
6 runs and 1 walk, or 6 strikeouts and 1 walk. Nothing wrong with that. Just a lot of hittable pitches, a lot of in the zone. Didn't get the movement he needed.
Throw down to second, is going to get into center field.
This is not the Cubs team you're used to, right? They're playing tight, and you know that's the kind of thing where you can say it when they're not playing well, and you don't really know way to quantify it, but they just don't look like themselves the last couple of weeks.
Second error of the inning. Actually not close by Montero. And now a man at third. So a stolen base for Marte, and then also the E2. Gets Marte to third with 2 outs.
You mentioned the 1 walk, Mike. I mean, remember where that walk was. It was right at the top of this inning. And it got this rally going.
This has been a really long inning, hasn't it?
Yes, it has.
There's a lot happening here.
I even talked about the Brady Bunch. That's how long it's been. We mentioned Screech.
That's from Wisconsin.
And that somehow was ball 4. So now first and third. And the 9th man to bat in the inning, Sean Rodriguez, will come up.
We talked about the catcher having to throw 125 feet before. That Montero threw 157 feet, which tells you a little bit about it. Yeah, I don't know. I mean, those Edwards, let's say he got squeezed a little bit. Three of those 4 pitches, at least, he had arguments for. I have a feeling we're going to be hearing about the strike zone after the game.
So here's Rodriguez, who hit a 2-run homer off Arrieta back in the 2nd. He's kind of a lightning rod, this Rodriguez, between himself and Cubs fans. It's stemming from the wild card playoff game last year, where he basically challenged the entire dugout and then took it out on a water cooler and a Gatorade box.
That would be great to have StatCast on.
The punch?
Yeah, his right hook or left hook.
What force it delivered to
exactly,
the Gatorade cooler?
I like that.
Get on that, will you, Mike?
Oh, we're working on it. Everything comes with time.
You know, on that walk, that last pitch, part of it was Montero did not sell that pitch very well. Maybe he's reacting to the call. He heard it right away. But he sort of shrugged his shoulders like he knew it was ball 4.
And he is an elite framer. At least he was last year. I haven't actually looked at the numbers for this year. I can't imagine that would change too much from year to year, but I think you're absolutely right.
And there's strike 3, and the inning has come to an end, but not before 4 runs come in for the Pittsburgh Pirates. And after 7, Pirates 7 and the Cubs 4. MLB columnist Jonathan Mayo has some thoughts about Tyler Glasnow's start for the Pirates and the calling up of Josh Bell.
It's been a very big week for Pirates prospects fans. 2 of the top 3 minor league prospects in the organization getting called up to the big leagues for the first time. Let's start with the number 1 prospect, Tyler Glasnow. The 6'8" right-hander made his major league debut in St. Louis and showed a glimpse of what is to come, even if it was just a one-time deal for the time being. Plus fastball, missed a good amount of bats in a big league lineup for the first time. The breaking ball, it's a plus curve when he stays on top of it. He hung it a few times, but it's a really, really good pitch that he can throw both within and outside of the strike zone to get swings and misses when he's throwing it well. This is a guy who's going to be a top of the rotation starter. At worst, it's the kind of guy who slides in right behind Garrett Cole in the not too distant future. Following him up to the big leagues, of course, was first baseman Josh Bell, another one of those guys who was a when and not if who's going to make it to the big leagues this year. Gets his first taste of the big leagues for a short spell right now. Signed back in 2011 for $5 million in the second round, was a record at the time. And the Pirates thought that he was going to eventually develop into a middle-of-the-order presence, a switch hitter who could hit for average and power from both sides of the plate. People started to ask, well, when's the power going to come? And it's always the last tool to come for an offensive player. It's starting to come now. He's among the International League leaders in home runs batted in. He leads the league in OPS. This is a guy who is going to hit in the middle of that Pirates lineup for a long time to come. Just recently switched to first base from the outfield. That's still a work in progress, but whatever inefficiencies he has with the glove, he's going to more than make up with it with his bat once he gets to Pittsburgh full time.
All right, Jonathan, thank you very much. Josh Bell, his first big league hit. He was able to score a run. All smiles, as you know. It's almost like he knew our camera was right on him at the perfect moment right there. Let's get it back out to PNC Park and welcome in our T-Mobile Raider coverage reporter, Anthony Castrovitz, out at PNC. And let's talk a little bit, Anthony, first of all, about the Arrieta outing. And he had a couple of real easy innings, and then it just seemed to kind of fall apart on him there in that last inning.
Yeah, if we would have had this conversation after the 6th, I'd say, you know, he leaves a couple up and makes a couple mistakes, but I'd say it was a positive outing. And then he walked the leadoff hitter in the 7th. And really the number 1 issue for Arrieta in recent weeks has been control and walking guys. This wasn't really an issue tonight, but we saw how it all unraveled on him when he walked that leadoff guy in the 7th.
Anthony, it's Adam. What sort of shape is the Cubs bullpen in for the rest of this game after extra innings last night, and sort of what's been going on with their starting rotation?
Yeah, it's not in good shape in general. So in general, they're playing 22 of 24 in 24 days, and that'll take a toll on any bullpen. But this bullpen is really becoming an issue for this club, and we know it's something they're going to have to address at the trade deadline. There's more trade deadline talk for you guys, but really it hasn't been counted on in a lot of close games in the first half. But lately the games have been getting a little tighter for them. Starting pitching has not been the dynamic force it was in the season's first 3 months, so they haven't been getting quite the length they've had, so they've had to count on these guys more. And we saw Carl Edwards Jr. tonight. He hasn't exactly looked ready for prime time thus far in his Cubs career. Trevor Cahill's had some struggles lately. Travis Wood is a guy they've had to lean on a lot this season. He's their only lefty back there right now, and there's some question, can he be a guy you trust in the big high leverage moments, lefty on lefty come October? So, this is a club that at one time had 0 question marks, but right now it's obviously the way the results have gone the last few weeks. There's questions popping up here and there, but I would say the only one that qualifies as a major question mark is a bullpen. It's something Joe Madden talked about before the game. Is they're really having trouble finding guys settle into roles in the back end.
Anthony, when you look at the bullpen and really the pitching staff, there's kind of a big difference between their ERA and their fielding independent pitching. What do you make of that?
Yeah, I don't know what to make of it. It's something we are all getting our heads around in this game is how indicative of that is of future, especially within the context of a single season. But you're right, Mike. It's the largest differential, largest negative differential in the National League, second largest in the big leagues behind the Texas Rangers. And I think it's just one more thing that does make you maybe not concerned, but certainly question, if they can keep up their first half pace in the second half. Because for one, they've been remarkably healthy in the rotation. We all know that. Is that going to continue? Adam Warren on Wednesday was the first time they've used the 6th starter, so to speak, all season. And that was on purpose. It wasn't because of injury. Well, injuries might present themselves in the second half, but also you might have some statistical regression. And maybe that's what's happening right now with Arrieta and the like. So, I think the two conversations run together, the bullpen and the starting rotation. We know that they feed off of each other. I think there's some argument to be made for leaving Warren in the rotation and just getting these guys some more rest in the second half, having a longer break between starts. I think you can see that with Arrieta in particular. There's a good argument for that. So be curious to see what the rotation looks like coming out of the break.
Anthony, one last thing. After Josh Bell gets that big hit on the first pitch he sees in the big leagues, did Clint Hurdle say anything today about getting him a start this weekend?
He did not. He specifically said, we view this as an opportunity for him to be a bat off the bench. Now, we know that could change because talking about having a good heartbeat, thrown right in the mix against Arrieta in a big spot and a big series for the Pirates. And, first pitch rips a single up the middle. So maybe that'll lead to something. But for now, when they called him up, the plan was just to have him be a bat off the bench.
Anthony, thanks. We'll talk to you post-game.
All right, guys. Sounds good.
All right, Anthony Castrovince, T-Mobile Greater coverage reporter out at PNC Park. And after a walk to Javier Baez, a pinch hitter, Albert Almora Jr. bouncing into the 6-4-3 double play, thus ending the top half of inning number 8 for the Cubs, who trail 7-4. Here going to the bottom of the 8th inning. We made mention briefly at the beginning of our broadcast about where the Cubs have gone wrong from that great start, and a lot of it has to do with the starting staff. And you look at their last 7 starts each, and save John Lester, who was the pitcher of the month in June, and Kyle Hendricks to a degree, everything else has been kind of
We've called at least 1, maybe 2 of those Jason Hamill games, and each time we've pointed out, for the last couple years, Jason Hamill's had a really great first 3 months or so, and then he's completely collapsed in the second half. And that is exactly what's already happening. And I don't think that you can kind of count on him to turn back the tide here. So I think Anthony's right. Maybe Adam Warren, maybe you bring up somebody or you add somebody. I think he's not someone I can rely on. I think Arrieta will be fine. I don't think he's going to be the best pitcher in baseball that he looked like. I don't think that was a reasonable explanation. Lester's been great. I think Lackey's going to be fine. This is still a very good starting rotation. There are some question marks, a lot more than there were a month ago.
Which kind of leads me to the next question, and we touched on it a little bit. All the talk about the Cubs at the trade deadline is bullpen.
Sure.
What about starting when you've got guys, that don't have the experience in postseason play like Kyle Hendricks, and have the track record of Jason Hammel.
Here's my opinion on that. I feel like you guys may disagree with me on this.
Okay.
They don't need to add anything for the remainder of the season, right?
Okay.
Consider the Division One, and I know famous last words, right? They're building for October, and I don't think they're going to get a starter who is going to be one of their top 3 pitchers in October. Almost certainly not. Now, I do think that they can get someone for the bullpen who would help with that, and everybody wants to talk about Miller or Chapman, and I think that's fine. But if you're looking at it for October, those guys will throw, 7, 8, 9 innings maybe? Would you rather pay through the nose for one of those, or maybe go for like a Will Smith, who obviously you see very often?
That's the name that keeps coming up.
Yeah, or another lefty, or someone who's very good and maybe 80% of their production for 50% of the cost.
If Will Smith pitched for the Cubs or the Mets or the Yankees, he would be one of the best relievers in baseball. He happens to be one of the best relievers in baseball who nobody knows about because he's got the same name. They think he's in Men in Black. He is really, really good, and he's pitching compromised this year, tore a ligament in his knee, and is pitching with a brace. So the slider is not as devastating this season, but when he is right, he is absolutely unhittable for a left-handed pitcher because of that brace. I do not see the Cubs getting a starting pitcher, and in fact, the guy who maybe you would take out is Kyle Hendricks, and he's like my favorite Cubs starter because he has that great changeup. And you saw the graphic over his last 7 starts, a 2.18 ERA, 40 strikeouts. He's been really good, while the Cubs have not been very good. And I do not see them adding a starter.
No, I would be very surprised if they did.
Just throwing it out there for a little discussion, which I love to do. Discussions about baseball are awesome. T-Mobile providing greater coverage of tonight's game. We had a good look at our T-Mobile greater coverage cam from behind home plate. And 1 pitch and 1 out for Trevor Cahill. Other defensive changes for the Cubs. Bryant moves from right to left. Almora stays in the game. He's in center. Hayward moves to right. And Contreras back behind the plate now. Hope you got all that.
Sure did.
Okay. There'll be a quiz later. So here's Matt Joyce. Pirates made some defensive changes in the top of the inning as well. Rodriguez moved over to first, and Jordy Mercer came in to play short. Sort all that out when they come up to the plate here. 7-4 Pirates lead in the bottom of the 8th. And another one of those guys that provided some big innings for the Cubs in the postseason last year is Trevor Cahill, former starter.
Trevor Cahill pitched for about 75 different teams last year.
He did.
I think he was with the Dodgers in Single A at some point. I got cut by the Braves and the Dodgers, I think, as last season went. Came to the Cubs, and he turned into an outstanding reliever. They have a couple guys in their bullpen. They've turned from busted starters into really quality relievers. Velocity up, as you'd expect. Same thing with the platoon advantage. He's really having a good season. Career high strikeouts, career low walks. Really a valuable pitcher, and just kind of pulled him out of nowhere.
Yeah, had a rough one the other day at Wrigley Field in the final game against the Reds. Gave up the lead after Adam Warren pitched 5+ innings. Joyce were in the walk there. But again, you look at lately about how much this bullpen has been used. And it kind of goes from, hey, let's bring these guys in for an inning or an out. And it's turned into multiple inning outings. So Jordy Mercer batting now for the first time. He's in the leadoff spot. And Jordy Mercer is an interesting kind of guy to look at, too, because when the Pirates were making their charge last year, he got hurt. And believe it or not, the Pirates went into a tailspin when he got hurt.
Which is interesting because Jordy Mercer, while he's a quality defender, has rarely been much of a hitter. If you look at his season last year, he's actually one of the worst hitting shortstops, a 293 on base last year, 320 slugging. It's not great. Now, he's been better this year. He's been basically league average. For a shortstop is actually pretty good. But I think last year, they were able to slide Gong in and play shortstop. I don't think Gong's an option there any longer now that he's coming off the knee injury. He's strictly a third baseman. And so they actually have an interesting situation with Gong and Freese at third base. Not a bad problem to have.
Right. Good pop from both of those guys.
Mercer hit a big StatCast home run earlier this season, didn't he? That was Patrick Corbin.
He did. Well, that was funny because that was in Arizona, and at the time, 3 of the 5 longest home runs of the season were hit by Pirates in about 20 minutes off of Patrick Corbin. Partially because I don't think Patrick Corbin had it that day, but also really humid night in Arizona. The roof was open. That ball was flying out of there.
Contreras trying to make that throw from his knees and blocking that pitch in the dirt, but Joyce able to get to second base nonetheless. Taking a look here.
Sort of sidelined it because he was throwing it quick. Contreras has a really good arm.
Yeah, he does, and we've seen him from the outfield hit 95 a couple of times, which is really impressive. I don't know if he's never played outfield before this season in the big leagues, so he's still a work in progress out there. But behind the plate, he's a surprisingly smooth and athletic catcher because he really came into the pros as a first baseman and a third baseman. They pushed him back there, so he's got a really good arm back there.
Contreras, the undrafted free agent in 2009. And certainly made an impact in a small amount of time with the Chicago Northside baseball team. 2-2 pitch. Good backhanded pick there. I remember him coming into his first game as a catcher and just being so pumped up to catch the final out. It was like the end of the Little League World Series. He was ready to celebrate it, and it was a win in June, you know?
Yeah, I like catchers who have scouts question whether they'll be catchers or move somewhere else because, say, they're really good offensive players or some guys are a little deficient behind the play. Whatever the case is, those guys seem to like sticking it to people by getting it up as catchers.
Yeah, you're absolutely right.
I'm thinking of Jonathan Lucroy coming to Milwaukee.
Yeah.
Offensive player. They thought he wasn't going to be a good catcher, and he's played himself a great pitch framer and a solid handler of pitchers.
That was a tough stab right there. Through the backhand on a pitch outside that keeps a double play in order here. As Cahill struggling with command for the first time in a while. He's walked a couple of batters here with one out. And Fryer, who came as a pinch runner for Polanco, who left with a leg injury, will bat now for the first time after running and scoring in the seventh. MLB Plus presented by T-Mobile. T-Mobile Greater Coverage reporter Anthony Castrovin's out at PNC. We'll chat with him post-game to get his thoughts.
Eric Fryer went to the same high school as Mike Matheny.
Nice.
That's your random
nuggets.
Statistical nugget of the night.
Yeah, if you've ever been interested in what small sample sizes mean, Eric Fryer is hitting 370 right now. In 49 plate appearances, his batting average on balls in play, 459.
That is good.
Going to go out on a limb and say that's not going to keep up.
It's a pretty sturdy limb you're going out on, too. Oh. Climbing the ladder over there at third base is Baez. Wow, that was ticketed for left and a run.
Yeah, see, that's the batted ball walk that he'd been enjoying so well coming back to bite him because he crushed that ball.
That's when it's nice having a shortstop as your third baseman. And a good shortstop as your third baseman.
89 miles an hour. Oh, excuse me, that was the foul ball before. Let's see what that one was. 98 miles an hour for that one.
Came off hot, and Baez able to make the play, make the catch. Well, we have a minute. Let's go back to the Matt Joyce stolen base and see what happened there with the numbers in StatCast, presented by Amazon Web Services. We'll get to that in just a moment here with McCutchen at the plate. And then a pitch low.
A big night for McCutchen, by the way. 3 for 4. And here's the replay of that stolen base. And good job by Matt Joyce watching the ball go down. But McCutchen has been struggling just horrendously. And we were gonna talk about that a lot tonight, and then he had to come out and get 3 hits, and it no longer seems quite as relevant. But I think that's a really big thing for the Pirates going forward in the second half, is if he can finally get back to where he'd been, because he's been playing through a thumb injury, he's been playing through a heel injury since June 1st before tonight. 205, 265, 311. That is 6 weeks of some pretty brutal play, and they need him to get back to what he can be.
He just got hit by a pitch, so now the bases are loaded for David Freese. Chris Bosio will come out, and while he comes out and chats, let's revisit the play with Eric Fryer at the plate and give you an idea of just how high Baez climbed. And
wow,
look at that.
That's a really nice play there.
Good extension. And kept it on the infield. And then McCutchen got hit by a pitch. And as Cahill trying to gut through this. And last time, actually the first time up, David Freese tucked the home run inside the right field foul pole. Let's take a look at that in StatCast, again powered by Amazon Web Services. 95 off the bat.
Yeah, projected home run of 340. Not the longest home run you're going to see on.
No. Great block there by Contreras. Who says catchers can't be athletic?
Yeah, he is having a very good inning, and he did it a different, that one he got out and got in front of a couple of pitches ago, we saw him backhand that play. He looks like a good player. Man, the Cubs have some good young position players. It is really impressive. And again, there are other teams going through this right now, through this rebuilding, and it's painful for a long period of time. But the benefit is, now he's an undrafted free agent, it's not like he was a drafted player.
Right.
But they racked up a lot of their really talented players by being extremely bad at the big league level for a long period of time. And if you can get your fans to buy in.
That was a tough sell.
Well, in a city like Chicago, it is tough. But I think there are other places now, Milwaukee, Philadelphia, where maybe they're doing the same type of thing. They're looking at the example of the Cubs and saying, okay, if we can come out on the other end, maybe we can, live through this.
You hate to use the T word, but are the Phillies this year not way more exciting than they've been in the last 4 or 5 years? They're not winning, but you can see the guys. You can see that pitching staff. You can see Michael Franco. I mean, these are the guys that are going to be part of the next good team, and I think Philly fans are way more excited about that than another year with like Howard and Utley.
Well, and they're making the tough call with Ryan Howard by not playing him, and they're, and the T word. I don't think teams tank because these good young players, they're young players that get in, they get their opportunity, they play really hard, and those are sometimes fun teams to watch. So they don't win a lot of games, but they can be fun to watch. And that's what you have to sell your fans on.
Yeah, absolutely. As long as they're seeing the progress, and I think Milwaukee's done a really great job to start off with that. I think the Phillies, the Braves, it's been a little rougher, but I do like the progress they've made. I think Cincinnati is the one that's in a really tough spot because, they got unfortunate. Obviously, Chapman's incident really killed his value. They waited too long on him and Frazier. And then that division, I mean, you see it firsthand. That division is so tough.
Well, and then they had a Jay Bruce trade.
Oh, boy. This is not the tight Cubs defense that we've come to expect. And I know I've said that like 3 times tonight, but it keeps happening.
So definitely a wild pitch. You see who gets the error. I couldn't tell exactly where the throw to Cahill was, but no tag was made, obviously. Joyce able to score.
Contreras is pretty good behind the plate. The pitchers have not made it easy.
A little bit up the first baseline. I'm sure he'll likely pick up the error.
So probably a wild pitch and a throwing error, I guess is how I'd see that.
Sounds right to me. So second and third now with 2 outs. Another run is in, and it's 8-4. In favor of the Pirates. This was once a 4-3 Cubs lead. After an Anthony Rizzo home run in the 7th. We'll recap this game for you coming up here in a moment. There's been a lot to recap.
Wilson Contreras is getting a workout behind the plate. He is definitely getting to show everybody his catching mechanics.
And that is the 3rd walk of the inning by Trevor Cahill to go along with a hit batter.
This is about the definition of things going completely off the rails here. Any good feelings they may have had for Marietta, velocity and some good pitches, it's kind of out the window because you're just looking at the defense falling apart, the bullpen falling apart here. This is a great stat, one of our data guys, Andrew Simons, gave us. The Cubs have allowed eight runs or more 8 times this season. Okay, 6 of them have happened since June 25th, which is like 2 weeks ago.
Yeah, it makes perfect sense. I mean, and like I said, I think we've talked about this a couple of times already. That you could see one thing falling off the tracks. Teams have been known to go into collective hitting slumps for a week, 2 weeks, but it's been the hitting, it's been the pitching, now it's been the defense. And again, shows you how important a good start to a season. I mean, people talk about discarding April, but if not for that start, where are they now?
Well, those wins count.
Yeah, absolutely.
The really puzzling thing is that this is happening to a team like the Cubs that have still, as we've said a couple of times tonight, the best pitching in the National League. And for them to go through this stretch where they can't get a start from a Lester and Arrieta to sort of stop it and turn it back the other direction is really interesting and I think surprising.
So Matt Joyce able to score the run here in the 8th inning. Let's take a look at his time from third to home here on StatCast, powered by Amazon Web Services.
Yeah, 18 miles an hour. Obviously, he's not really considered a speed demon, but he got home. That's all that matters right there. And yeah, you have Marte coming up. This has the potential to get
really out of hand.
Really out of hand.
Sorry to steal your words. So the base is loaded for the Pirates. These last 2 Pirate innings at the plate have seemed to last 2 days.
Yeah, and they're not really that type of I mean, they're an okay offense, right? They're pretty middle of the pack in a lot of they're good in on-base percentage, but they've been kind of in the middle of the pack in terms of scoring.
Might as well go to second. And look at the force. So I guess all things considered for Trevor Cahill, it could have been a whole lot worse when you walk 3. And in that inning, a run with no hits. And 2, and I take that back, 1 more Cubs error in that inning. So after 8, Pirates in command here as we now take a look at our StatCast recap of our ball game here tonight. David Freese got things started here. With our StatCast powered by Amazon Web Services. That home run just tucked inside the right field foul pole.
Seems hours ago, doesn't it? So much has happened since then.
This one, a no-doubter by Sean Rodriguez.
Yeah, great year by Sean Rodriguez. He's slugging nearly 500. And, you see hits like that and you understand.
And Francisco Liriano, they had it going at times.
We saw the velocity. It wasn't necessarily clean innings, but he made it work.
And Andrew McCutchen, the man we had traded 3 times here tonight, with a double.
And he took inside pitches on this home run. He took an outside pitch for a run-scoring single up the middle. That is the type of Andrew McCutchen where you can't pitch him anywhere.
And here's Jason Hayward going down and getting one against Liriano.
Yeah, I think this was the one that was just off the ketchup bottle. Came ever so close to going out, but it turned into a triple. And then Arrieta, a breaking pitch, obviously 90 miles an hour, almost impossible to hit.
And a little drama here as Miguel Montero's home run, a 2-run shot with 2 outs, actually tied the game at 3. And then Anthony Rizzo put the Cubs up, believe it or not, 4-3.
Boy, the game felt over at that point. And the Cubs fans going nuts.
And a nice MLB debut for Josh Bell against Jake Arrieta. Exit velocity of 93.2 miles an hour. And then, as we look at it here in 3 dimensions, put that one out there in the right center. Oh, and then that guy McCutchen came up again.
3 hits for him tonight. And as you said, that's a big deal. It's been a real rough season for him.
I think the Pirates a 6-4 lead at that point of the ball game. And it is now an 8-4 Pirates lead. We go now to the top of the 9th inning. And we'll get a new pitcher here for the Pittsburgh Pirates. A.J. Schugel, the 25th round draft choice of the Los Angeles Angels of Anaheim back in 2010. And he relies on a couple of pitches as well out of that bullpen. A lot of lean on the 2-seamer and the changeup.
A.J. Schugel's the guy who's bounced around a little bit and was with the Diamondbacks, and here he is with the Pirates. And listen, this is it's the 9th inning. Just throw strikes. That's all your teammates want. They don't want to watch you throwing, putting guys on base. Just throw it down the middle, essentially, or not giving up home runs, obviously. But we got Tommy La Stella, it looks like.
Tommy La Stella, the pinch hitter, in the 9 spot. Just recently activated from the disabled list.
I think you could see some action out there in the bullpen. I would imagine Melanson is getting ready to come in if there's a safe situation.
And Rodriguez will handle that one himself for out number 1 here in the Cubs' 9th. So the leadoff man, Ben Zobrist, will come up. Sean Rodriguez, again, showing versatility, playing first base. Okay, that one looked pretty easy.
22 of 29 first batters retired. That's pretty good for a middle guy.
High strike called by Marquez. Schugel, 27 years of age. Big league debut came last year. Well, the pronounced shift is on here for Zobrist. And that one lifted into short center. And on comes McCutchen to make the catch for out number 2. You're watching MLB Plus. It's featuring StatCast, powered by Amazon Web Services.
So we do know that McCutchen's been playing shallower this year. And I think we saw it right there last year. 316, I think I said, and now he's playing even shallower than that. And there's no right answer. We saw that ball, the triple, like maybe he could have gotten to that one.
Chris Bryant, the last chance for the Cubs here in the ninth.
Schugel doesn't throw that hard, but he's actually looked pretty effective here. He's gotten the ball over the plate. He's not allowing the Cubs to hit it that hard. And, you know, when you're a mop-up guy, and that's what you need. I know mop-up, obviously they're ahead, but still, they're ahead by enough.
Good movement there.
That'll play.
Pirates fans on their feet. Cubs down to their final strike. And a waste pitch there, 95 miles an hour.
Man, you know, you talk to hitters, guys who've been in the league for a long time. This is the type of reliever that they all talk about. There is no one in baseball anymore who comes in and doesn't throw 95. And the guys who've been in the league forever are like uncle.
2-2 now.
And there's a good changeup. Didn't swing at it, but a good pitch in that position.
I like that they're saying uncle.
Oh, they are. I'm telling you, the guy, you talking to hitters who've been in the league for a little while, they said this is the biggest change. And, you know, home runs are up again this year, but they say it's down because of all the velocity.
That's so hard to compare eras. Full count, 3-2.
Man, how do you lay off that pitch? 2-strike count. That's a good changeup.
Yeah, good low spin changeup. You saw the movement of it, and that's really what you want for a changeup. You want to get that movement. Changeups that stay up generally stay out of the park.
And Bryant keeps the Cubs alive here with 2 outs in the ninth. Second hit. Been on 3 times. And here is Anthony Rizzo. A good at bat here by Chris Bryant.
Yeah, a couple of changeups in a row that Bryant didn't offer at. I'm sure Schugel wanted to swing and miss, obviously, on those pitches. He has to go fastball, and Bryant serves it in center field. 94.
I'm sure the last thing that Clint Hurdle wants is to have to get Melanson even up in this game, because look at the save rule. The tying run is not in the on-deck circle yet.
Yeah, Melanson pitched 2 of the last 3 days, but he and Watson, Tony Watson, if you go back the last 3 seasons, they're the 2 most heavily used relievers in baseball. So anytime you can get him a day off, especially because it's going to be an All-Star game, he might pitch an inning there, he'll be very, very happy to do so. And I think something that you don't consider too much is if he doesn't get into the game, but he has to get up and warm in the bullpen.
It's like pitching.
That still matters, and it's hard to track that.
And that probably happens to Watson more as a setup man than it does to Melanson, the closer. And Watson also has the benefit of pitching partial innings. You know, he's going to come in for a batter. He's so good, he often pitches full innings. But I think his innings count will be lower, so it's the wear is on Melanson, and the cutter can be put some wear and tear on your arm.
Two errors on each side of the ledger. Pirates leading 8-4. 2 outs, top 9. Runner at first. Anthony Rizzo at the plate. Fouls it back. Now it's 1-2.
Change up.
Again, that Pirates crowd whips itself into a frenzy.
Change up so far. I think he likes the change up against lefties.
See what they have in mind here on 1 and 2. Again. And again. The changeup.
You can just feel the frustration of the teammates there. Like, please don't walk this guy. Let him put it in play. Strike him out. Like, let us make a play on this.
Changeup's 82 to 85, though. If he throws another fastball at 95, it's going to look like about 195. But Rizzo can hit a fastball. I've heard that.
We saw that earlier.
420 feet was his 4th longest homer of the season.
3 balls, 2 strikes to Rizzo. Now full. So Bryant will be off on this pitch as well with 2 outs at a full count. Actually, he just took second. So my bad on that.
That'll be the ever popular defensive
indifference. I would just call it, we don't really care. Go ahead, take it.
Defensive
indifference. I want to draw it out a little bit. This defensive indifference just doesn't sound right. Call it a stolen base minus. Ball 4. So now the tying run, let's see, 8-5, 8-6, is in the on-deck circle. So this is a save opportunity. And Clint Hurdle is climbing the stairs of the dugout and walking with the grizzle of a veteran manager out toward the mound.
How disappointing is this, for Schugel? You're kind of forcing the manager to make a move here. I mean, Hurdle has to come out. He can't let this go on any further.
I give credit to Chris Bryant because he took a couple of tough pitches to take in 2-strike counts and kept this inning going. He gave the Cubs a chance.
So the All-Star Mark Melancon will have to come into this ball game and see what he can do here, as Contreras is the man to come to the plate here. Take a look at some StatCasts from around the league here, powered by Amazon Web Services. Can't get enough of this home run. Mike Napoli. Oh, man, did he put a charge into that one. Way up there near the drummer. Look at him.
I like how the drummer did not break stride.
Oh, he got faster. I want the metrics on his drumming. 106.6 miles an hour off the bat.
460 feet.
It's amazing.
That is a blast.
And nobody in the dugout could believe it. The 18th home run of the year for Napoli. How about a little defense here from Billy Hamilton in center field. Tracking a long way here at Marlins Park. Going up and making the grab.
You think about him stealing bases. You don't give him enough credit for playing defense. That speed really, really plays out there.
How about the route efficiency on this one?
I think he's going to go about 106 feet to catch this ball. There it is.
Not too shabby.
I might have known that ahead of time.
I was going to say that is a very, very good guess.
Thank you for keeping it a secret.
And not distracted by the sculpture out there. That is the key to the whole thing.
Oh, God, that thing is so gaudy, isn't it? So here's Melancon. I digress. Melancon, the lone All-Star representative right now for the Pittsburgh Pirates. Starling Marte losing out to Brandon Belt in the final vote on the National League side, but Melancon, pretty low velocity off the bat as far as the pitches are concerned coming out of his fingers.
The lowest, 200 batted balls against as a minimum over the last 2 seasons. The lowest. An exit velocity, that's pretty important when you're trying to avoid hard hit balls. And it's interesting, he is not an overpowering reliever in the sense that Dellin Betances, who is second on that list, is. He throws the cutter all the time, and the cutter is really impressive. But he's throwing it 90, 91, sometimes maybe 92. It's got a lot of movement on it. And then I love he's got a knuckle curve. A spike curve, you might want to call it. It's interesting because a knuckler is not supposed to spin. A curveball is supposed to spin. So you're trying to catch the middle there and make it a curveball with a little less predictability.
And is it surprising that a guy with a great cutter played with Mariano Rivera?
No, I will say it is not surprising.
He says the thing he learned from Mariano, he didn't talk about the cutter, he said it was to avoid the spotlight. That is very good advice for a closer.
Well, the same point, not surprising to find guys that have been around Trevor Hoffman throwing a good changeup. So, I mean, hey, if it works for one guy, it can work for you, at least in theory. So here is Contreras with 2 on, 2 outs, 9th inning. A lot of movement on that pitch.
Yeah, I don't think Contreras has seen too many pitches like that in the minors. There's that knuckle curve. Actually, it probably stayed a little higher than I think Monson wanted it to, but a lot of movement on that. I was able to drop it right in the zone.
Came back and challenged him. And now the rookie is in the hole 0-2. Four-seamer that time. Received at 93.6. Good extension there from Melanson.
Could see another one of those knuckle curves here, but it would be in the dirt.
Right back with a fastball.
I feel like we've seen about 75 pitches fouled off this inning.
So Contreras fighting off that pitch, still 0-2. A knuckle curve, 2 fastballs. What will we have here?
There it is.
There you go.
Couldn't hold up, and that's your ball game. And the Pittsburgh Pirates defeat the Chicago Cubs in Game 1 of this 3-game series before the All-Star break, 8-4. And not exactly the cleanest game played on either side, but the Pirates will certainly take this win. No doubt, as they move a little bit closer in the Central Division, a little bit closer in the wild card. And a happy birthday to Josh Harrison today, his 29th birthday, and his team got him a win.
8 of 9 for the Pirates, and don't look now, but it's 7.5 games back, Mike Petriello, of the Chicago Cubs, with 2 more games to go this weekend.
If the Cubs were to blow this, then the 1964 Phillies can finally rest easily. It's not going to happen, but I will say it is okay now for Cubs fans to be a little worried, because this is an ugly game all around, and it's kind of one of a string of ugly games for the Cubs. It's a good time for the break, but yeah, I'd be worried.
8-4 the final. Pirates over the Cubs. Let's take a listen and a look at some of the sights and sounds of our ball game here tonight.
The 1-0, and he hits the ball the other way toward the line, nearing the corner, and it is gone! An opposite field home run for Mr. Freeze! 1-0 Pirates in the second.
Blasted to left and deep, and there it goes! A home run for Sean Rodriguez!
What sort of imposter is wearing the uniform of Jake Arrieta tonight? 2 homers in the inning and a 3-0 Pirate lead.
Deep right off the bat of Montero. Gone! We are tied. Oh, baby. Miguel Montero. That's huge.
The 3-2 pitch on the way. Rizzo hits a drive. Right center field and deep. Back is Polanco. It's got a chance. Gone. Cubs lead 4-3. Anthony Rizzo launching one to the area between the 375 marker and dead center. It really carries in that spot, and he hit it halfway up into that little bleacher section. His 21st of the year, and the Cubs have their first lead of this ball game, 4-3.
And the pitch. Bell line drive, right center field. Base hit. Base gosh, he's fired up. He moves Frazier to third. 2-0 pitch, Chopper on the right side. They'll only get one out, maybe. Rizzo, throws the ball away. Here comes the runner. Bell, he scores. The Buccos lead it. The Buccos lead it in the 7th inning. Rizzo threw past the pitcher covering. It skipped past Wood. Everybody's safe. Pirates lead it 5-4.
So the final, 8-4 in favor of the Pittsburgh Pirates as they win Game 1 of this 3-game series leading up to the All-Star break. Cubs finishing up a stretch of 24 in a row. And Adam McCalvey, as we talked about during our pregame show, Jake Arrieta was a little bit of a question mark. I mean, I guess you have to look at that after the last 3 starts, but some really good innings and some really bad innings.
Yeah, good news, velocity up. So maybe the concerns about the velocity fade a little bit, although that changed a little late. But this was his worst ever start against the Pirates, a team that he had owned. It's the 13th time he's faced in his career. The 9 hits is a career high against them. He has struck out 6 or fewer batters in 4 straight starts. The earned runs are way up. 3 straight starts with at least 4 earned runs. I mean, there are a lot of different reasons to be concerned about Jake Arrieta.
Yeah, home run given up here to David Freese in the beginning of the ball game, the one that just tucked inside the foul pole. But again, giving up home runs at somewhat of an alarming rate for a guy like Jake Arrieta, giving up this one here to Sean Rodriguez as well. And we mentioned how important this game and this series is for the Pittsburgh Pirates, who have seemingly come out of nowhere, even though, like we said at the beginning, don't call it a comeback. For Mike Petriello, it's 7.5 games now for both the Cardinals and the Pirates.
Yeah, it's listen, the Cubs are still comfortably in front, but what if the Pirates sweep this series, right? And it's possible, and then maybe you go into the break and it's only 5.5 games. That gives the Cubs something to think about. I would say it's time to worry. I mean, the Cubs are still a great baseball team. We knew they were going to hit a bump in the road, but it's been a really ugly bump in the road, and it's kind of gone on for a little longer than I think we thought it might. Now, hopefully they'll get Fowler back right after the All-Star break, and I think that'll make a big difference for them.
Let's take a look at our win expectancy moment of the game. And a young man